Hey everybody, Rose Matter here. Welcome to part 11 of my Higurashi When They Cry Minagoroshi Let's Play. Guys, that last episode was insane. I know I said multiple times that it gets crazy after Watanagashi, but I could have never expected that we would be dealing with like a shadow organization trying to set about the doomsday apocalypse, and it's run by Takano, and she's the one who killed Tomatake, and she's gonna set this whole thing off. Like, what? I always thought she was a little fishy, but I never would have expected that. So I'm concerned. I'm concerned for Rika because she's got the mountain dogs looking after her, but now we know that Takano isn't exactly on our side, so yeah, I'm a little worried for Rika. I'm worried for the whole town because, like I said, they want to bring about doomsday. So I don't even know what could possibly happen next. So we're just gonna continue on. We are gonna see what is going to happen. Let's pray for these characters. Let's go. The day after Watanagashi, Oishi showed up at our school. It isn't uncommon for Oishi to show up here today. Interestingly, he always asked to see the most key person in that world. He asked for Keiichi in the world where he gets sick. He asked for Rena in the world where she gets sick. Oh, he's going to ask for Rika. In this world, he asked for me.
Tomitake ga shinimashita ka?
And this is where she's going to be like, shit, things didn't really change like I was hoping.
ちょっと尋常じゃない死に方でしてね。薬物か何かで錯乱状態だったんじゃないかと思います。自分で自分の喉をかき破るというショッキングな亡くなり方でした。
やはり抗えないのか。
There's nothing I can do now. I knew this was going to happen. I'm sure Takano was dead too.
高野は
彼女についても残念なご連絡があります。隣の県の山中で焼死体で発見されました。死体の状況から多分絞殺された後に焼かれたんじゃないかと思っているのですが、どちらにせよ気の毒な話です。
大石の考えは分かってますです。僕が何か知っていると思っているんでしょう。
いやいや、まさかまさか。疑うとしたらこの一点だけです。あの人混みの中で小耳に挟めるようなところでこんな物騒な話をする人がいるわけがない。
僕が何かの陰謀の片棒を担いでると思っていますですか？
と思い込みたいところですが、それも本当にその気なら、あなたは私にあんな入れ知恵をすることはなかったんですからね。少なくとも今回の事件を起こそうと考えた何者かとは相対する位置にいると思ってます。
それが本当ならとても嬉しいのです。
Oishi threw a 10 yen coin in the offering box and shook the bell in prayer.
どうか今年こそHINAMIZAWA村連続開始事件を終わらせられますように。
そのために僕に協力しろと。
今のはお社様にお願いしたんですよ。
Oishi is well aware that people call me the reincarnation of Oyashiro-sama. That must have been his attempt at a joke.
僕もこんなたたりはもう金輪際にしてほしいと思っていますです。
おや、ならフルデさんと私の求めるところは一致するようですね。
僕は昨日富武の死体が見つかりそうなところを予言しましたです。そこにパトカーはいなかったのですか？
いいえ、ちゃんと巫女様の予言に従って配置しました。
So she's gonna see that things have changed slightly.
ほら、細道路と砂利道の境目になっているあたりがあるじゃないですか。通称村境とか呼ばれているあたりです。あそこら辺はとても暗いですからね。何かヤバいことの起こりそうな匂いが一番プンプンするあたりです。
では富武の死体はどこで？
配置場所よりももっとずっと沖宮寄りの水田地帯の路肩です。
That's not where his body is usually found. If he was fated to hallucinate and die, he would die in exactly the same spot, whether the cruiser was there or not. just because the cruiser was placed there. Tomatake's body was found in a totally different spot. In other words, the existence of the police cruiser disrupted that fate. Maybe this will be her little bit of hope, like, okay, if I can change fate somewhat, maybe I can still survive.
でですね、ここからがちょいと面白い話になります。パトにはですね、私通る車もチェックさせたんです。そしたら高野の車が祭りの終わった後、沖宮方向へ通過したんですよ。
So he suspected her, but then she's dead. I wonder if his police instincts are gonna be like, but maybe she's not dead. Because there was the whole thing, right, about how the body said it was dead 24 hours before it was found, so maybe he does think that there is something going on there. Takano lives in Okanagi. It wouldn't be strange for her to head back home after the festival.
ただ、乗ってたのは一人だったんです。富武は乗っていなかった。
富武はHINAMIZAWAにはいつも自転車で来ますから。
なら自転車をトランクに積んで車に乗せてもらうのが普通じゃありませんか。ですが富武は一緒じゃなかった。にもかかわらず富武の死体はHINAMIZAWAからパトを越えて沖宮の方の水田地帯で見つかる。
つまり
あの真っ暗な中、森の中を突き進んでパトを迂回したなんてできる芸当ではありません。だとしたらパトに気づかれずに街道を抜けるしか考えられない。ウルデさん、高野と仏の関係について教えていただけませんか。
恋人同士、それしか知らないです。
高野がね、恋人との最後の夜の仰せを一人で帰るというのが腑に落ちないんです。富武はその時トランクの中に詰められていて、あの真っ暗な森の中に捨てようとした。
He is so perceptive.
だがお告げのパトカーがたまたまそこにいちゃったもんで、仕方なくそこを通り抜け、もっと先で富武を捨てた。
Both Tomatake and Takano were sent here from Tokyo. I have no idea what their real identities are. I can't say that Takano had no reason to kill Tomatake. However, I've never considered that possibility before in my life. Takano killing Tomatake? But why? I can't think of any reason. Nothing comes to mind, and it's hard to imagine Takano was cornered to the point she had to kill him. In fact, it was more plausible to think she was enraged when the lovesick Tomatake acted cold towards her and she strangled his neck.
私はあのカップル、どことなく不釣り合いだなってずっと思ってました。こう言っちゃ富武君に失礼ですが、高野さんでは荷が勝ちすぎているんじゃないかなってずっと思ってました。高野が富武を何かに利用しようとして近づいていたとか。
ないです。でも話は聞いてみようと思いますです。何か分かったら大石にも知らせますです。
And she's got to realize this whole time? Oh, well, I guess, I don't know, because I was gonna say, like, if she thinks that Takano is dead, she's got to know that the mountain dogs are still, you know, like, looking after her, and they have to be hearing this right now. So that means Takano is hearing this, and they're gonna know that Rika is gonna ask around that Oishi is suspicious of Takano. And I feel like she's gonna take Rika out.
ありがとうございます。村の内部に詳しい方、それも御三家の当主でお社様の生まれ変わりの協力がいただければ鬼に金棒ですよ。
But even the reincarnation of Oyashiro-sama couldn't solve this mystery for over 100 years. People brought up a good point in the last episode. If Hanyu is able to just wander around, why would she not follow Takano and Tomatake herself? And then at one point in these 100 years, see what happened and see that Takano is behind this. Like, I don't understand. Like, I don't think Hanyu has any sort of, like, she can only go a certain distance away from Rika. So, it would make sense for Rika to just be like, Hanyu, why don't you go follow them and then come back and tell me what happened, right?
でもその高野も殺されたのですよ。どういうことなのですか。
私はもしあなたから垂れ込み、おっと、お告げを聞いていなかったら、多分きっと 富武と高野は共に犠牲者で、親しですが、こうなってくるとどうも違う。どうやらこいつは親代様のたたりの5年目ってことにしようとした
Yeah, and they all
巧
know
妙な事件のように見えてきまし
they all
た。
know that Takano is obsessed with that, right?
つまり高野が犯人。
Basically, this is what Oishi is trying to say. They're not both victims. The culprit is also pretending to be a victim. This is really hard for me to believe. I can't think of any reason why Takano would do something like this. Oishi only feels the way he does because he doesn't know her as well as I do. For another thing, how can he explain that Takano's body was found? Didn't the police in Gifu Prefecture identify the body?
焼死体の識別には歯型照合が最も有効だと言われています。ただ、うちの鑑識のじじいが言うにはそれでも 100% じゃないという。まあそれよりおかしいのが現場の県警鑑識の死亡時刻なんです。
Yes, this is when, like, we know the reason why now, but it was always kind of brushed over. And it was seen as like some sort of supernatural thing, but now it has a legit reason to exist.
当初死亡時刻が合わなかったらしいんです。
死亡時刻が合わない。
ねえ、祭りの前夜にはもう殺されてたっていう鑑識が出ちゃったらしいんです。内容物とかそういうのから調べるらしいですね。ですがこの時点で岐阜さんには高野の話をしちゃってたんです。だからお隣の県警さん、綿流しの日に彼氏とデートしてたはずの死体が死後24時間では話が合わないって言って、その死亡時刻の鑑定なんかより死体の歯型鑑定の方がよっぽど精度が高いですからね。まあ現場にはたまにある話です。ですが高野が犯人かもしれないって目で見てみると、こいつは高野の死体じゃない可能性が出てきます。
死体をごまかすことなんて可能なのですか？
焼死体の鑑定は基本的に歯型以外は絶望的です。例えばこれは推理小説的な荒技ですが、沖宮のデンタルクリニックに残されていた高野美代の歯型のカルテ、これが巧妙な手口で捏造されていたら誤認もあり得る。まあそんなのは抜きにして、単純にお隣の県警さんが高野に間違いないと決めつけてしまった可能性の方が高いですが、警察組織内では往々にして初動時の鑑定ミスが後々まで尾を引くことが少なくない。伝説的な冤罪事件のほとんどはこれに起因します。私はどうやらその可能性が拭えない気がする。
つまり高野は生きてる。
高野美代は先日以来車ごと行方不明です。現地の死体が高野でないなら、これはなんだか面白そうな話になってきます。
I wonder if Rika is gonna realize now that the protection that she has might end up being her downfall. Because if Takano is still alive and she had a reason to do this, and she wants to bring about the curse and stuff, then, and if the Mountain Dogs are hearing this right now, then they're gonna be like, okay, no loose ends. Oh, is this where Erie's gonna die too? Irie had already heard about the deaths of Tomatake and Takano. It seemed like both the clinic and the office in Tokyo had flown into a panic over it. It's funny how they make such a big fuss about their own people when they don't care about what happens to other people's lives if it would get in the way of their research. This was also glazed over too, Erie's death, so now we're gonna see how it happens. Oh, yep, Takano's subordinate, Okanagi, was in the room. Okanagi is the leader of the Mountain Dogs. I came here to make sure he's still willing to protect me. Based on past experience, they tend to lose interest in protecting me after Takano dies.
Okanagi.
Oh, Rika, right. Right, that makes more sense. Yeah. Oh, no, Rika, no.
高野が死んでしまいましたですが、僕は大丈夫なのですか？
大丈夫ですよ、リカさん。 我々が今後も厳重に警護してますんで。ですから、警察に
Oh,
頼ろうと
that's
しな
not
くても問題
foreboding
な
at
いで
all,
す。
right? Oishi is your friend, Rika. Don't listen to this guy. Or Akasaka. I still want to believe Akasaka is going to come into... Like, he has to. I can't believe they brought him back and they're not utilizing him. I guess this is part of that tight security? They must have been listening to my conversation with Oishi.
大石に
Exactly.
聞きました。
Exactly.
高野が実は死んでいないというのは本当ですか？
Rika, you're just saying it straight up?
まさか。現地の県警の正式な発表ですんで。大石という刑事は今年で定年。お社様のたたりを何とか解決したい一心で、何でも話をおかしくしようとする癖がありよります。あいつの言うことに耳を貸さん方がいいでしょう。
Well, he's not wrong. This year is Oishi's last chance. Because he's so desperate, he's developed a bad habit of listening to every rumor he hears.
では、おこのぎはこの事件をどう見ていますですか？
現在、上が調査してますんで、いい加減なことは言えません。殺された二人の関係を知る以上、内部犯行の可能性が極めて高いっちゅうんは、間違いないんじゃないかと。
I glanced over at Eri as I listened to Okanagi speak. It seemed that whoever he was talking to over the phone was accusing him of killing them. Eri was frantically trying to prove his innocence. Soon enough, he hung up the phone. Eri looked upset. He was under suspicion after working so hard for the organization.
ああ、リカさん、すみませんね。だいぶお待たせして。
入江も大変なことになったようなのです。
お聞きになった通りです。富武さんたちの死は何かの陰謀による可能性が非常に高いです。そして東京はその黒幕が私であると思っているようです。まったくどうしてそういう方向になるのか大いに疑問です。
I rarely ever saw Eri get so emotional. He must be feeling as though all his effort is being repaid with injustice. However, it's a fact that Eri was trying to fight against the budget cuts and downsizing of his research team. Tokyo is thinking that could be his motive for killing them. In any case, everyone in the organization is suspicious.
リカさんの心配は分かってます。高野さんたちを殺した何者かが次にあなたを狙わないとは限らないですからね。東京もそこは特に気にしていました。
山犬にもあなたの警護体制を最高にするよう命令が来ています。ご安心してくださいんで。
Nothing about protecting her, they're just tightening the security.
それが聞ければ、僕は少し安心なのです。
This was the first time the Mountain Dogs had ever tightened up my security. They usually become so busy keeping tabs on Eri and Tomitake and Takano's deaths that they end up ignoring me. Even though they're dead, I'm still in a pretty favorable situation.
高野たちを殺した犯人に
I mean,
心当たりはないのですか？
I still don't know what Takano wants with Rika, if she wants to keep Rika safe or kill her. Like, I'm assuming she wants to kill her, but that might not be the case. She might need
東
Rika.
京の皆さんも調べられています。
I was gonna say she might need Rika to have this, like, doomsday thing happen, but then I'm thinking to when Rika was, like, splayed out with her guts out, and, you know, they wanted to set off the doomsday, like, what better way than to kill the reincarnation of Oyashiro-sama, right? So, I don't know.
状況を見る限り内部事情に精通した人間の仕業です。どうやら真っ先に疑われたのは私のようです。
富武にああいう死に方をさせられるのは入江だけなのです。
そんなことはありません。おそらく東京の方も H17 の話をしているのでしょうが、あれは危険な目的での研究が中止された時全て破棄されたはずです。あんなことは不可能だ。
ですが所長、こういうことが起こってしまった以上、東京は疑わざるを得ません。それに富武氏には予防薬があらかじめ与えられていたはずにもかかわらず発症したんです。
天文学的低確率で起こった偶然だとしか言えません。とにかく絶対そんなことはありえないんです。
Eri is usually a very calm person, but once the people in Tokyo start suspecting him, he often loses his mind.
高野が犯人ということはありませんですか？ 高野なら内部の人間です。
高野さんが。
Man, she's just throwing that all out there right in front of the mountain dogs. That's pretty ballsy.
まさか。
But as he spoke, Eri also started to realize that everything could be explained if Takano was the culprit. But I don't know how to persuade him that it's the truth. More than anything, people want to hear a motive. Not who did something, but why. Knowing that probably isn't as important as it sounds. After all, you never know the motive until the suspect talks. Guessing about the motive is just a waste of time. In other words, it's stupid to assume that Takano isn't the culprit just because I don't know what her motive is.
リカさん、確証もないことを言っちゃいけませんね。あれだけ親切にしてくれたんじゃないんですか？それを疑っちゃ悪いですね。
Upon hearing me be ungrateful towards his boss, Okanagi flashed me an unpleasant smile. It's true that Takano was very nice to me. It might be disrespectful of me to suspect her. However, I still can't trust her completely yet. Perhaps I've developed the same bad habit as Oishi. Am I believing every crazy theory I hear just because I'm desperate to escape from my fate?
とにかく私たちの身近で何か良くないことが起こりつつあるのは間違いありません。用心するに越したことはないでしょ
う。ご心配なく。所長に対する警護体制も最高にするよう命令を受けております。
Once again, nothing specifically about protecting them, just tightening the security. Eri smiled bitterly. For him, their protection wouldn't be too different from stalking.
リカさんも警察には不用意なことを喋らないようにお願いします。分かってると思いますが、場合によっては機密保持のため、厄介なことになるかもしれませんので。
He was implying that he'd have to kill anyone I talked to. This isn't the first time they've warned me about this. It's just, what if Takano really is the culprit? If she is, then Okanagi is almost certainly involved too. Then it'd make sense he wouldn't want me to suspect Takano. But that would be horrifying. Yeah, it would be. If Takano was my enemy, then the mountain dogs were too. This whole clinic is a lion's den. Eri is just a researcher, so he probably wouldn't know what's going on. The more I thought about it, the more confused I got. Why would Takano do something like this? I thought I just convinced myself that the motive shouldn't matter, but I can't stop thinking about it. Is Takano really behind it all? Am I going as crazy as Oishi just because of how badly I want to solve this mystery? Perhaps. The mountain dogs are more like wolves looking after a flock of sheep. I've lived for over 100 years. I never once found out who killed me, and I stayed close to the Eri Institute so they'd protect me. What if that was my big mistake? Well, I'm sure that Eri has no bad intentions. In many lives, I got to see just how genuine his feelings are. I can trust him. However, he's not really reliable. Okanagi glanced over at me. He smiled and told me not to worry, but I noticed an evil glint in his eyes. It's possible that I have Hinamizawa syndrome and that was just a hallucination. I don't understand anything. That's me, in this game. I don't even know who my enemies are anymore. There's no point in thinking about this any longer. I have to only trust who I know I can trust for sure. There are only a few of those people, though. Eri, Oishi, and my friends. If Okanagi's on Takano's side, he'll be watching me very closely. If I started accusing Takano of anything, who knows what they'd do to me. When this world first began, I thought I had no time left. But that wasn't true. The number of things that happened in just 2 weeks was immense. I probably only have a few more days until the day of my death. What can I do? How can I change this? Am I supposed to just take Hanyu's advice and resign this time? Oh, bum bum bum. I wonder if she went to Mion, you know, and got some help from the Sonozakis. Who's stronger, Sonozakis or mountain dogs, you know?
Hmm. それで、綿流しの晩にはもう失踪していたらしいんだよ。
I'm just imagining like they're in the classroom and they look over and there's a mountain dog in one of the desks just trying to be trying to be inconspicuous.
お社様のたたりかな。
さすがに5年も連続すると薄気味悪いよな。
Hinamizawa is a small village. Rumors spread fast here. Besides, she's Mion Sonozaki. She would have found out about this yesterday even if the police were trying to hide it. My friends were all talking about the mysterious death of Tomatake and the disappearance of Takano. People in this village are very superstitious. No matter what happens, they conclude that everything is the curse of Oyashiro-sama. The past incidents don't matter to me either way. All I'm interested in is the current one. The culprit of this case will probably kill me too. 2 days have passed since Watanagashi. Today is Tuesday, June 21st, 1983. At the earliest, I'll get killed on the night of the 22nd. That is, tomorrow night. The day of my death is always different. I always end up getting killed, but the day when it happens varies. I guess the culprit has their own reasons for that. There's only one thing I'm sure about. Based on my experiences, I'll live for sure until tomorrow night. After then, I'll have to live with the fear of getting murdered at any moment. Still, there's no real reason to be afraid. When I wake up, I'll be in a brand new world again. I can never remember how I'm killed. That's why I'm not that afraid of the killing itself. I'm just frustrated that my life is about repeating the same things over and over like a broken record. However, at present I'm frustrated. My classmates just expect that their peaceful days will continue forever. But I couldn't feel that way. I feel frustrated and full of sorrow, as I really don't want to die, especially after she got everything she wanted. You know, she got Sadako back and everything, and then she just has to potentially leave it all behind and restart.
明日の夜ですが、リカは悔いがありませんですか？
Hanyu, why don't you do something? Why? I still am frustrated with Hanyu. I don't know what the limit to her powers are, but I still don't understand why she couldn't have, followed them and see what happens, you know? And then we would have figured out a while ago that Takano was behind it all.
バカ。ないわけないでしょ。
Hanyu was trying to warn me that I might get killed tomorrow night, as though she already knew it was going to happen for sure.
リカはとてもよく頑張りました。そして今年の綿流しは僕が生きてきた中でも一番の楽しいお祭りでした。それはリカもだったのではないですか？
It was fun. It really was fun. Sadako had band-aids all over her face, but everyone was there together and we kicked up a storm. I want this world to continue forever. I can't accept that. This world is going to end tomorrow at the earliest, and within 1 to 2 weeks at the latest.
また次の世界でもきっと楽しくできますのですよ。
So the problem is, even if Rika survives, then the Hinamizawa disaster still happens, so it's about stopping that as well.
この世界はもう終わりなの。こんなにも楽しい世界なのに。もう終わりなの。
All of my friends are alive and happy. Keiichi doesn't feel alone, and Rena's family is happy too. Mion and Shion are getting along, as well as Shion and Sadako. The issue of Sadako's uncle is resolved and she's no longer treated coldly by the other villagers. This is the best world I've ever experienced. But this world is going to end.
リカ、僕たちは特別な存在なのに、リカは自分のことを普通の人間として考えすぎなのです。楽しいパーティーがいつまでも続けばいいのにと子供の誰もが願う。でもいつかパーティーはお開きになりますのです。だから子供たちは楽しい瞬間をどうか永遠に続いてほしいと願うのです。でもだからといって終わったパーティーを嘆くことはない。眠ればまた明日の朝になる。そしてまたいろいろと楽しいことが起こるのです。パーティーが終われば消えてしまうシンデレラなんかいない。私の生への固執を。今のリカはパーティーから帰りたくないと泣いて椅子にしがみつく 子供と同じなのです。どうして泣いたり悲しんだりする必要が？またパーティーはやってきます。リカは死を越すことを未だに忌み嫌っているけれど、僕たちにとっては一眠りのまたぎだというのに。
羽生は昭和58年の6月より先に何があるのか。
見たくないと言えば嘘になりますです。でもそれに固執して裏切られ傷ついてゆくリカの方が心配なのです。リカには分かってない。気の遠くなるほどの長い時間を誰とも会話することができず、楽しい祭りもじっと眺めているだけ。子供たちの遊ぶ輪を横で眺めていることしかできない悲しさなんてわからない。誰にも私の姿が見えない。誰にも私の声が届かないし、誰も私に話しかけてはくれない。
Yeah, once again, it seems like Hanyu's kind of coming at it from sort of a selfish perspective, is like she's thinking about like that she'll be lonely. And I wonder if that's the reason why Hanyu doesn't try to really solve the issue, is because she knows it's just going to reset and she gets to be with Rika again. But then the thing is that if Rika survives, then she gets to be with Rika. But then Rika will die eventually, I guess. You know, if maybe she reaches old age and she dies peacefully that way, then she will leave Hanyu forever. So Hanyu is kind of okay with it looping like this, because then Rika stays with her.
そんな辛さや悲しさがリカに想像つきますのですか？その中でやっと出会えたリカなのです。僕はリカがいなかったら生きていけない。でもリカのように死ねもしないのです。僕は時の果てまで一人ぼっちで生きていかなくてはならない。新しいあなたが現れるまでずっと膝を抱いて一人で過ごしていかなくてはならない。僕はそんなのは嫌なのです。絶対に嫌なのです。
羽生。
だからリカ、あの悲しい約束を取り消してほしいのです。この世界でも運命に打ち勝てなかったら、もう全てを諦めるというあの約束を取り消してほしいのです。
羽生、ごめん。もう少しだけその返事を待たせて。
I want to do what I can until the end. When that happens, I can decide what to do. If I think there's still some hope, I can go on living. But if I feel desperate enough, I can just give up. It might not ultimately be a bad thing to repeat June of 1983 over and over. Perhaps I might be blessed with another fortunate life someday. Hanyu nodded with a little satisfaction after hearing that, sensing that my feelings were starting to lean the way she wanted them.
どうしたよ、レナ。リカちゃんをお持ち帰りする算段でもしてるのか？
ねえ、ケイイチくん。リカちゃんに元気がないとは思わないかな。
どうだろうな。
And there's that perceptiveness.
奉納演舞の疲れが抜けないんじゃないのか？
Rika-chan was sitting all by herself wearing a sad expression. I'd said she might be tired from the festival, but that wasn't really how it looked.
さとこちゃんが解放されて踊り上がってもいいくらいなのに。なんだか昨日からリカちゃんの様子がおかしいように思うの。
Forget Sonozaki versus Mountain Dogs. I want the club members versus Mountain Dogs. This is what they've been, for 100 years, this is what they've been training for, is to take down the Mountain Dogs. I think it might be kind of a fair fight, actually.
悩み事でもあるんじゃないかな。
That's what they need to do. Rika needs to tell them what's going on. They'll believe her. They'll protect her. They'll take down the Mountain Dogs, find out the mysteries, take down Takano, and everything will be okay. Probably not, but that's what I want to happen.
てっぺの件は完全に決着したはずだろ。リカちゃんが悩むような問題は何もないはずだぜ。
We thought Sadako and Rika-chan might not be able to live together if they found a new guardian for Sadako. But that problem is almost solved. Either the Sonozaki family or the Kimiyoshi family will become her guardian. Hey, that's what I was saying, is like maybe the Sonozakis will take her in. Oh, Mayor Kimiyoshi is already Rika's guardian. If the Sonozaki family gets custody, Sadako will officially become Shion's little sister. Aww. Oh my gosh, so adorable. Anyway, I had no idea why Rika-chan was acting so upset. I didn't even think about that. If they adopted her, then Shion and her could be sisters. Oh, she lost a brother, but she gained a sister.
こういう時は声をかけてみるのが一番じゃねえのか。
それがかえってデリカシーがない時もあるし。でも、ケイチくんなら大丈夫だと思うかな。
それはつまり俺にデリカシーがないっていう意味だな。
Rena laughed and stuck her tongue out at me. I walked up to Rika-chan and struck up a conversation. Perhaps something is still troubling Sadako and we just don't know about it. If that's the case, we need to help her.
元気なさそうだな。何か悩んでるのか？
ケイチ。
Rika-chan had been daydreaming, and it took her a while to realize I was talking to her.
僕が悩んでるように見えましたですか？
まあな。どうしたんだよ。何かあったのか？
It took her a while to answer. Such a long silence had to mean yes.
ケイチ、聞いてもらいたい詩がありますです。誰が作った詩かは聞かないでくださいです。そして聞いたら感想を聞かせてほしいです。
いいぜ。どんなのだよ。
Rika-chan closed her eyes and recited a short poem. It went something like this. Everyone has the right to be happy, yet it's so hard to receive. Everyone has the right to be happy, yet it's so hard to fulfill. I have the right to be happy, yet it's so hard to compromise.
結構難しい詩だな。それはリカちゃんが作ったのか？って聞くのはなしなんだったな。
なしです。ケイチはこの詩を聞いてどんな感想を持ちましたですか？
Everyone has the right to be happy, yet it's so hard to receive. I understand that. Everyone does have the right to be happy, but that doesn't mean everyone can receive that happiness. Everyone has the right to be happy, yet it's so hard to fulfill. This one is a little harder to understand, but exercising that right probably refers to the process of finding happiness. Everyone has the right to work hard for their happiness, but it's not that easy for that work to bear fruit. I have the right to be happy, yet it's so hard to compromise. I guess she's trying to talk about compromising your happiness? There's no limit to human desires. You can never stop wanting more. That's why people need to make compromises on their happiness. At least that's how I understand it. If she was trying to say we should be satisfied with what we have, it sounds like a positive statement. But there's also a negative tone to the way it's presented.
この詩は多分詩を作った人の心情を表しているものだと思う。
僕もそうだと思いますです。それで感想はいかがですか？
She wouldn't admit it, but I'm sure Rika-chan is the one who made that poem, and it's reflecting on how she's feeling. I'm not that smart, but even I can understand that.
悲しい歌だなって思った。
悲しいです。
最初の2つはわかる。幸せに過ごす権利は誰にだってあるが、だからといって誰でも簡単に幸せになれるわけじゃないもんな。そういう厳しさを歌ったものだと思う。でも最後の一つは毛色が違う。妥協ってのは諦めるって意味だ。この詩の私は幸せになることを諦めて今を妥協して幸せだと思い込もうとしてるんだ。
幸せだと思い込もうとしている。
それも未練いっぱいにな。誰だって努力さえすればきっと幸せになれるのに自分だけはそれが絶対届かないと分かっている。
I like how he says straight up, she thinks she can't, so yeah, he definitely is implying yeah, I know you wrote it, Rika.
そんな諦めが漂う悲しい歌だ。
ならケイチ。
I don't know, Keiji says he's not very smart, but I mean, that was a pretty apt way of interpreting it.
この詩の私はどうすればいいんでしょうか？
くじけるなってことだな。
くじけるなです。
この詩を歌ったやつは自分がどういう風になれれば幸せなのか悩んで、それは決して高望みしたものではないと思う。どうやったら幸せになれるかを延々3段も考察してるやつなんだぜ。真剣に考えてるんだ。だから ここまで幸せになりたいと一途に思ってるなら、絶対に諦めちゃダメだと思うぜ。俺たちは絶望的な状況をほんの数日でひっくり返したんだぜ。みんなで力を合わせればきっと奇跡が起こせる。リカちゃんだってそれを目の当たりにしたはずだぜ。あるんだろ悩み、打ち明けてくれよ。
打ち明けたいことはあります。でも打ち明ければみんなはもうひなみ沢でのんびりと暮らすことはできなくなるでしょう。私にとっての幸せはみんなと楽しく昭和58年6月以降も過ごすこと。だからこそ6月をくぐり抜けるためだけにみんなを巻き込んでも。
ひなみ沢にのんびり暮らせなくなる？どうしてだよ。
打ち明けたことを知られたら奴らは必ずみんなを殺す。だから助けを求められない。
殺すって穏便な話じゃないな。まさかリカちゃん誰かに脅迫されてるのか？
The word kill is not something most people use casually. I was shocked to hear it coming from her mouth. That's why I couldn't help but raise my voice.
誰が敵かもわからない状態です。一つわかるのは誰かが私を必ず殺すということだけです。
ごめん、リカちゃん。話してくれ。一体何があったんだ？
Is Teppei threatening her? No, that is impossible. The police arrested him, and besides that, the Sonozaki family told him to never come back to the village. There's no way he could contact Rika-chan in order to threaten her. And even if that somehow was the case, Rika-chan could just talk to Mion and everything would be taken care of. But based on her expression, it seems like this is way deeper than that.
ごめんなさいです。これ以上言えばきっと巻き込みますです。圭一たちが巻き込まれれば仮に6月を超えられても、だから打ち明けられないのです。それが多分私が望む幸せに対し妥協しないということなのだと思いますです。
リカちゃんがさっきから何を言ってるのかさっぱりだが、リカちゃんのその言い方、先日までの聡子にそっくりだぜ。
聡子に？
ああ、耐えることが美徳だと勘違いして戦う勇気を忘れてる。
Yeah, exactly.
そういう風に聞こえるな。電話で聡子に戦う勇気を奮い起こせと劇を飛ばしたリカちゃんらしくもないぜ。
My words had clearly hurt Rika-chan's feelings. She bit her lip and went quiet for a moment.
巻き込まれれば圭一たちもきっと殺されますですよ。
殺されるのはごめんだな。でもよ、放っておけばリカちゃんは必ず殺されるんだろ。だったら俺もリカちゃんのいない未来なんてごめんだな。
Aww.
リカちゃんが俺たちを巻き込みたくないって思うように、俺たちもリカちゃんを失いたくないって思ってる。荒事は大歓迎だぜ。それに3人集まれば文殊の知恵って言うだろ。部活メンバーみんなで相談し合えば必ず妙案が出るぜ。
いくら部活メンバーでも無理なものは無理だと思いますです。
俺たちを巻き込みたくないから打ち明けられないんだな。ならリカちゃんは俺たちに打ち明けず一人で死のうってことなんだな。
そういうことだと思いますです。
耐えることを美徳だと勘違いするな。戦う勇気を思い出すんだ。心の整理がついたらいつでも何時でもいいから相談してくれ。俺たちは絶対に力になるからな。
ありがとうです。
Rika-chan was wearing a sorrowful smile. I could tell she appreciated my sympathy. I don't know why, but Rika-chan is troubled by something. It's a matter of life and death for her. She can't even talk to us about it. At the very least, she won't talk to me.
どうだった圭一くん。リカちゃんが悩み事だって？珍しいね。
聡子、変なことを聞いてすまんが、リカちゃんが命を狙われているような話ってあるのか？
は？何を言ってるんですの圭一さんは。 リカちゃまは村のシンボルじゃないですか。拝む人はいても命を狙う人なんているわけないです。なんだいなんだい、物騒な話だね。
The more I talked to my friends, the stranger it seemed like that someone would try to kill Rika-chan. Everyone was even more confused than I felt.
リカちゃんは悩みを打ち明けてくれたわけじゃない。でも何かに悩んでるのは間違いなく、それはリカちゃんが俺たちを信頼してくれるならきっと近いうちに打ち明けてくれると思う。その時はどんな突拍子もない話であってもきっと信じてあげて力になってあげよう。きっとだぜ。
We all looked at each other and nodded. Oh, now the thing is going to be like, will she talk to them? Alright, Faded Notebook. The Son of God promised that he would be resurrected within 3 days. Sinful men guarded his grave to make sure he would not wake up, but that was foolish of them. He meant that his spirit and his lessons would be resurrected, not his physical shell. Do not be afraid of physical death. If you achieve great things, you will live again. You will surpass death and become immortal. A demon took the Son of God to a cliff and told him to jump off. He claimed that if he was really the Son of God, a miracle would help him survive. He tried to challenge the Lord. The Lord challenges humans, but humans may not challenge the Lord. To challenge is to suspect. Suspicion will speak words of evil in your ears, and it will make you falter. Do not doubt your own achievements. Do not doubt your own life. Do not doubt your contributions. Do not let others criticize your achievements. That is the same as doubting your own life. Hifumi tea. When I woke up, the first things I saw were Sadako and the calendar. The first one to wake up is supposed to tear yesterday's date off the calendar. Sometimes we both tear the calendar by mistake, so the date ends up 2 days ahead. Sadako likes to tear the calendar, and that makes her wake up early every morning. That would usually make me smile, but I felt devastated as soon as I saw the 22nd on the calendar. It's going to happen today. June 22nd, the day I die.
おはようなのです。
おはようございますですわよ、リカ。
二人ともおはようです。
二人？あらあら、まだ寝ぼけてるでございますの？
さとこの他にもこの部屋に住んでいる人がいますのですよ。その人にもおはようを言いましたのです。
もう、朝から怖がらせるのはなしでございますわよ。
これでさとこは今晩怖くて僕の手を握ってないと寝られないのです。
Sometimes I feel like Sadako can see Hanyu, and it's as if the three of us are living together. That would be a lot of fun. It was time to go to school, but my body felt heavy. Today, I was going to die. Knowing that, I didn't even feel like going to school. The more I've repeated the same life, the more precisely I can detect my day of death. I always die on the day I feel this way. Oh shit. But things can change, right?
そろそろ学校に行きますわよ。
僕は今日はお休みしますです。
Oh, that's right. Stay by yourself. That's the thing to do. Ugh. No.
リカ、圭一さんに聞きましたけど、何か悩み事があるって本当なんですの？
あると言えばあるし、ないと言え。
What else is there left to do? Today's the day. It's too late now. But part of me still feels like doing something. I've been in this world only a few days. My emotions went up and down like a roller coaster. Sometimes I feel motivated to fight, and other times I feel desperate and give up. Even though Keiichi and everyone else showed me such strength, I lacked the iron will to fight against my fate. The most confidence I ever felt was when the dice all came up as 6, a fortunate coincidence that was just handed to me. I was hoping to gain the courage to fight against my fate, but here I am today conceding to destiny. Keiichi told me we can make a miracle happen if we work together, but there was something he didn't teach me. He didn't teach me how to believe in that. If I don't believe I can make a miracle happen, I won't be able to make even a crack in the wall of fate. It seems so simple, yet so difficult. I couldn't even decide whether I should be on the stage or stay off it and remain as a spectator. I told Hanyu I haven't decided what to do after this world is over. But that's the spectator's point of view. For the people on the stage, this world is the only one. For them, the end of the world means the end of their lives. That's why they do anything to change their fate. That's why they can make a miracle happen. I never worked hard enough because I always knew I could reset my life. I thought I was just one pathetic girl who couldn't change her own fate. That's why I ended up here again today. It's as if I've slacked off on my summer homework and woke up on the last day of vacation with nothing completed. What should I do? Should I not work on my assignments, knowing I'm not going to make it on time anyway? Or should I do whatever I can, even though I may still get in big trouble? Perhaps. A miracle will happen. Perhaps the homework will be done overnight. Miracles don't happen to homework. I have to do the homework on my own. Without effort, nothing will ever get done. Without effort, not even one question will be solved.
リカの好きなように過ごすといいと思いますのです。リカの大好きな窓際で甘いワインを飲むのもリカらしい過ごし方だと思いますのです。
どうせ怒られるなら、最後の一日も気ままに過ごそうという開き直りね。
For Hanyu, it's not about the homework, it's more about the vacation itself. The vacation will be over no matter how much I want it to continue. In her eyes, it's pathetic for me to make a big deal of not completing my homework, and contemplating whether I should still work on it or not. On top of that, I'm saying I might as well die if my vacation is going to be over. If I was in her situation, I'd be laughing hysterically. Keiichi told me to seek everyone's help in order to finish my homework. But I'm not taking that offer, not only because I don't want to cause them trouble, but also because I don't want the teacher to know I got help from them. If I was going to have regrets, I should have worked on it from the beginning. If I had no intention of working on it, I should have just relaxed without stressing so much. If I didn't care what others thought, I should have asked for their help in the first place. Those are the 3 options I talked about with Hanyu yesterday. I didn't choose any of them. I've been living for over 100 years, but I still can't decide. My 100 years were wasted.
さとこ、僕は今日、風邪をひいてしまったので、お休みしますです。そうなんですの？体温計でお熱を測ります？今日はゆっくりさせてくださいです。知恵には、僕は風邪で休むと伝えてほしいのですよ。リカ、本当に風邪なんですの？なんだか命を狙われてるような話をしているって圭一さんが言ってて、私、本当に心配してますのよ。
I wonder if they're all gonna just ditch school and go over and seek her out.
ありがとうです。
Just like they did with Sadako, right? They all banded together.
もう行かないと遅刻しますですよ。
Sadako looked at the clock, then looked back at me again.
私は今すごく幸せですのよ。みんなと楽しく過ごせて、またリカと一緒に暮らせるようになってとても嬉しいんですの。だから、リカがいなくなったら、私がどれだけ悲しい世界に生き続けなくちゃならないか、よく考えてほしいでございますのよ。僕の、いない世界。ええ、リカのいない世界なんて、とても辛くて悲しい世界ですわ。
That's the thing, she always thinks about if she lost everybody else, that she would be sad. She wouldn't want to live on without them. But it's like Keiichi said, it's like if they lost her, then they'd be sad too. I've never thought about that. I thought that the world ended when I died. I've never thought about the world after my death. That was never my concern.
だから、どうか自分をリカが思ってる以上に大事にしてほしいんですの。リカ一人の不幸じゃない。リカに悲しいことがあれば、私も、そしてみんなも不幸になることを決して忘れないでくださいますですのよ。さとこ。リカ、今日はそっとしておきますけど、悩みがあるなら絶対に相談するんですのよ。仲間が悩んでいるのに自分を頼ってくれないこともまた悲しいんですから。
Sadako seemed like she wanted to say more, but she looked at the floor instead. I know what she's trying to say. I realized how selfishly I've been living. It was wrong for me to look at this world as a stage play. But it's too late. It's too late now. Sadako left the house in a hurry. Hanyu and I were left alone inside the house.
僕もお邪魔でしょうから、リカが呼ぶまで消えていますのです。
気が利くのね。
100年生きても、リカはリカです。100歳の仙人にはなれないのです。リカには、年相応に悩んで考える時間があってもいいと思います。僕がリカに背伸びを敷いたこともあるかもしれませんのです。
羽生は悪くないわ。私が勝手に天狗になってただけよ。
僕とおしゃべりしたいときは呼んでくださいです。
もう泣きつかないの？私がこの世界で終わりにするのを撤回してほしいって。
リカは頑固な人ですから。言えば言うほど逆効果になりますのです。
さすが。付き合いが長いだけのことはあるわね。
もうリカも悟っているようですから、言います。今日です。悔いのない一日を。リカが何をしてもしなくても、朝が来て夏休みが終わるように、この世界も終わります。でも、リカが望めば、次の朝も訪れる。
It's interesting, I guess, with Rika, it's like she says, when she dies, and that's it. But then, when you see in other chapters, when she dies, and the world just keeps going on without her, and everyone has to suffer the consequences of her being dead.
そして、それはまたしても、今年の6月かもしれないけれど、朝は朝。
もっと小さい頃、毎日が退屈で、毎朝、起きても同じ日が繰り返されてるんじゃないかって思ったことがある。それが本当になるだけのことだしね。
今日を有意義に生きてくださいとだけ言いますのです。これ以上は僕は何も言いませんのです。
多分今日だろうと思っていたけど、あんたにはっきりと言われると答えるわね。やっぱり終わるのね。今回も。
はい、今回も終わりますのです。いつもと同じように。
Hanyu disappeared and it went completely quiet inside the house. I don't want to believe that this is actually going to be the end, especially because apparently there is a decent amount left of this chapter, so I want to believe maybe something's going to happen to extend it. How should I spend my day? How should I end this day? Should I work on my homework knowing I'm not going to make it on time? I only have half a day left. I have to do my best. I should think about what I can do. This world is supposed to be a happy place. People are enjoying their lives. I should have enjoyed my life more too. I don't mean it in that I should have lived my life in blind optimism. It means that I should have enjoyed my life by fully experiencing both happiness and sadness. If I did that, I wouldn't be as worried about what to do after my death. I should have simply lived with all my might. When the time comes, it'll be over.
今日を生きる。
That's a very important phrase, but it sounds meaningless when I say it because I can repeat this meaningless life as many times as I wish. While Sadako was at school, I washed the dishes. Hanyu would usually stay with me when Sadako wasn't around, but she's not here right now. It's been a while since I was all by myself. I never thought anyone could feel so lonely while washing the dishes. I'm going to die today anyway. This world is ending today, and you choose to do the dishes as your last thing, huh? Why should I wash these dishes, exactly? That's because I'm thinking about Sadako, who will have to move on with her life after tomorrow. Oh, so she's like, I want to make things easier for her and do the chores. I will encounter a new Sadako in the next world. But I realized something after hearing what Sadako told me earlier. After I'm dead, I wonder how Sadako will move on with her life. The worlds that I've left in the past all went on without me. I wonder if Sadako will be able to cook without me. I wonder if she can go shopping on her own. I wonder if she can wash her clothes by herself. I've been avoiding thinking about this, but Sadako and my other friends must have been overcome by sadness. It's too late for me to think about this, but I started feeling like I want to cry. I'm feeling like this because I don't want to leave this world. Yes, let her have that hope and maybe she can run to the school and get a hold of them. This is the world I've always wanted. It's my hope I can continue to live in this world beyond June 1983. After a long journey, I finally ended up in this world. But I was able to truly live in this ideal world for only one night. The night of Okanagi. This world will be shattered again after I die tonight. We finally saved Sadako and all our friends assume that our happy life has returned. However, I'm going to die tonight. They will mourn for me. We worked so hard to make a miracle happen, but they're going to lose their happy world in just one day. Am I going to start a new life in the next world as if nothing happened? I'd lived 3 days in my new world, but 3 sad days were going to pass in this world. That's no good. I can't think straight anymore. I couldn't stop the tears from flowing from my eyes. I hugged Sadako's pillow and cried. I could smell her scent. After I die, Sadako will probably hug my pillow and cry just like this. Is everyone else going to cry for me too? I'm sure they will. And? They'll be sad. Not about my death. They'll be sad not because I'm dead, but because I never told them about what was troubling me so much. I wonder if they're going to feel regret. Will they wonder what they could have done to open up my heart? What they could have done to help me in my time of trouble? Will they wonder what they could have done to save me? I felt miserable and frustrated. I held Sadako's pillow and continued to cry. And the next moment I heard the phone ringing. I tried to ignore it, but it wouldn't stop ringing. I picked up the phone hoping my friends would call to check on me. However, I heard a weird guy's voice coming from the receiver. Uh-oh.
どうも、Okanagi造園と申しますが、古出さんのお宅でいらっしゃ
Oh,
い
the
ますか?
gardeners, right? The gardeners were the ones Who was that? Wasn't that Rena, right? Rena said that the gardeners were secretly, like, coming after her to kill her. And this is the case this time.
おこのぎ
It was Okanagi from the Mountain Dogs. It was the first time I'd received a phone call from him.
緊急のご連絡がしたくってお電話させてもらいました。学校にお電話したら、今日は休んだと言われましたもので、具合は大丈夫ですかいね?
I'm not alright. This is the day I die. I knew he had no idea, but I still couldn't help but feel upset.
風邪なのです。ちょっと今日はゆっくりしていますです。
そうですか。偶然とはいえ、それは好都合だったですね。
え
I had no idea what made him say he was glad I was sick.
どうして僕が風邪をひくと、おこのぎの好都合になるのですか?
いえ、実はあなたの命が狙われている可能性があるっちゅう連絡が入ってきたんです。
それはどういうことなのですか?
この度の富武氏たちの事件なんですが、東京の調査の結果、入江所長が黒幕である可能性が高いっちゅう連絡が入ってきました。
入江が黒幕?
Don't believe it, Rika. This is the first time I've heard something like this. This isn't something that happens at random. It's the very first time. That means it's not just a coincidence. I'm hearing this now because of something I did differently in this world. I don't want to believe that. I don't. I refuse. I've done many things differently in this world, though. I can't tell which decision led me to this result. However, maybe this is something that could change my life drastically. Okanagi continued to explain to me. There had been budget cuts to their research, and they were scheduled to be shut down within a few years. Erie was strongly against that because he was embezzling their research money by requesting bigger and bigger budgets. Because they were going to cancel their research, he tried to sell the research data and make a lot of money off of it.
それは本当なのですか?
信じたくないでしょうが、事実ですんで。まあ、入江所長はどこか後ろめたそうなところがありましたんよ。
I think I can say with
そんな
certainty.
感じでした。
I think I could say with certainty that Erie is not that type of person. That's right, don't believe it. I've been around him for years, and as far as I know, he's not a bad guy. He doesn't even have the guts to be one. He pretends to be cold-hearted for the sake of his research, but he can't shake his regrets. He's simply a nice person. It's hard to believe he was embezzling money from Tokyo. I'm starting to be suspicious of Takano, but she's actually a nice person too. She seemed mean at times, but she could also act as innocent as a child. However, I'm starting to suspect her because Oishi told me the body they found in Gifu might not be Takano's body. Okanagi works for Takano. That means I can't trust Okanagi. That's right. In other words, I can trust Eri because Okanagi is clearly trying to set him up. On the other hand, if Takano isn't guilty, I could be making a huge mistake. Yet, it always seems to me as though Tomotaki and Eri were good friends. If Tokyo had suspected Eri was embezzling money from them, Tomotaki would have treated him far more coldly. Anyway, at the very least, Tomotaki of Tokyo didn't have a bad impression of Eri. The Eri of the Eri Institute and Tomotaki of Tokyo were good friends. Tomotaki of Tokyo and Takano of Tokyo were good friends. Takano of Tokyo and Okanagi of Tokyo were superior and subordinate. But Okanagi of Tokyo says that Tokyo is suspicious of Eri. This doesn't make sense. Everyone seems to be good friends at first glance, but the links don't connect from start to finish. Eri thinks he had a positive relationship with Tokyo, but Tokyo is suspicious of Eri? That's just odd. The chain should be connected, but one of the links is twisted out of order. It's breaking the loop.
すでに東京が内定に着手してますんで。また、入江はあなたを何らかの交渉の最後の切り札に使おうとしている可能性があるらしく、あなたに対する警護体制を本日よりさらに強化せよとの命令が来ました。それでご自宅にいられる運は都合がいいと言ったんですんで、すでに古出神社の周辺は山犬が3交代、20人体制で警護に入らせていただきましたん。
So there's no way she's going to be able to sneak out.
もちろんご安心ください。それっちゃわからないように気を利かせてますんで。
That's right, they're there for her, but in what capacity, right?
すごい警護体制なのです。その警護はいつまで続くのですか？
東京から解除の命令が来るまでずっとですんで、今回の一件が解決するまでです。
That should have been good news for me since today was the day I was supposed to die. This is exactly the kind of security I've wanted. That's why I let Takano into the ritual storehouse. However, I have a bad feeling about this. Tokyo should be my ally, but that arrangement is just like Eri's relationship with Tokyo. Everything seems in order from my end, but when you trace it back the other way, it feels like something's off at some point. I have this uncomfortable feeling because I have a few uncertainties about Tokyo. Tokyo and Eri have strong ties, but they're suspicious of him? Is Eri actually a bad guy? Is Takano still alive, and is she the one who killed Tomotage? Those questions and more make me uncertain about accepting help from Tokyo. I thought Tokyo as a single organization would move with a single intention, but in reality, they have multiple different intentions. In other words, there must be multiple... what's the word? I see it in the political section of newspapers all the time. Oh, right, factions. Are there two factions in Tokyo? One that wants to remain friendly with Eri and one that looks down on him? That would explain the irregularities I'm sensing. Maybe I've been talking to Oishi too much? If he hadn't told me he was suspicious of Takano, would I have believed Okanagi without a doubt? Well, maybe not. Even without Oishi's theory, Okanagi still sounded very suspicious. Eri was loyal to his research on Hinamizawa syndrome. Tokyo understood that, so his relationship with Tomotage wasn't particularly strained. Plus, Eri isn't the type of person who would commit embezzlement. He's a law-abiding citizen with a good moral character. Of course he has some ambition as a researcher, but that only goes as far as common sense expects any researcher to. It's nothing like the criminal aspirations that would lead to major embezzlement. A great number of the mountain dogs were going to be guarding me. This is what I'd been wanting in my previous lives. But, for some reason I couldn't be happy about it. I couldn't help but feel depressed. If this house is like an empty birdcage, then they'd be the fox with the feathers stuck to its face. I don't know if I can really trust the people who are protecting me. I tried to recall more about Okanagi. The mountain dogs have been protecting me for years. Okanagi provided his skills in many of my other lives. To them, I'm something of a special existence. If something happens to me, it would be a disaster. The Eri Institute is there to keep Hinamizawa syndrome under control, and the mountain dogs are there to protect me from evildoers. So why would they try to betray me now? I thought about it for a while, but I had no idea. I just know one thing for sure. I can't feel comfortable with the protection of the mountain dogs alone. I want someone other than Tokyo protecting me. But I bet such a person wouldn't believe me. Wait, what about Oishi? I've been keeping in touch with Oishi since the other day. He still thinks that the mysterious deaths in Hinamizawa are all plotted by the village authorities. If he believes that, then he might believe that my life is in danger. For him, I'm a special person with lots of useful information. The mountain dogs hate the police, though. When I asked them to assassinate Sadako's uncle, they refused because he was being watched by the police. I would feel relieved if the police were guarding me along with the mountain dogs. That way, the dogs wouldn't be able to harm me even if they were working for an evil faction of Tokyo. Besides that, if my suspicions towards them turned out to be baseless, more protection couldn't hurt. I'm sure double security will keep me safe.
わかりましたです。今日はおとなしくしていますです。
ええ、そうなさってくだ
Yeah,
さると
please
うち
do.
ら
It'll
も
make
助か
our
ります
job
んで
easier.
町へ繰り出して変なチンピラに喧嘩でも売られるとうちらも苦労しますん。
根に持たれているのです。
では、風、お大事になさってください。
風の診察に診療所に行ってはいけませんですか？
万が一ということがありますんで。入江診療所には当分近寄らないでください。妙な注射でも打たれやすと大変ですかいね。
入江はそんなことしないです。
しないとうちらも思いたいですがね。その疑いが解けるまでちょいとしばらく慎重にしてほしいっちゅうこってん、安情ご理解をいただきたいんですわ。
すったらんしゃもないのです。
おこのぎもいつの間にかすっかり地元言葉になりましたです。
最初は普通の東京なまりだったです。直せと言われれば直せるつもりですがね。地域に溶け込むのが仕事ですから。
I finished speaking with him. As soon as I hung up the phone, I opened my phone book and looked for the number to the Okanagi Police Department. I'm wondering if they have the phone tapped so they know if she's calling outwards to anybody. It was nearly noon. It felt like the pages of the phone book were sticking to my skin. I must have been in a hurry. I really don't want to die. I want to stay in this world. I don't want to leave this perfect world. I'm trying to do something because I don't want to die. I'm trying to live with all my might. I'm trying to enjoy my life. For the first time, I was spending my last day positively without drinking wine until I was drunk.
もしもし、大石です。お待たせしてすみませんでしたね。ちょいと今からお隣の県警に行ってこようとしてたところでした。どうもあちらさん話が通らないんで、直に襟首を掴んでゆすってやろうと思いましてね。
県警、高野の死体のことですか？
ねえ、周りは勝手に納得して高野の死体に間違いないってそれで直接行って見てこようと思います。死体が高野でないと分かれば話は一気に急展開しますからね。高野を重要参考人として手配できます。幸い向こうの柔道部とは交流がありますので、ちょいとみっちり話し込んできますよ。
It looked like Oishi was proactively moving forward with the investigation. If that body really is Takano, then that would be sad for her, but it would give me reason to trust the mountain dogs. If that's not Takano, then that would tell me she's part of this whole incident. No matter what the result is, it would give me some kind of hint. But only if I'm still alive. But really, it's unfortunate. Oishi is leaving for Gifu. He can't be around to protect me.
大石、実は変な声の電話があったのです。知らない人でしたが、村人だと名乗りましたです。
匿名の電話ですか。続けてください。その電話は何と？
僕を殺そうとしている人たちがいる。早ければ今日にも決行すると言ってますです。
それは本当ですか。なるほど。それはありえない話じゃないな。わかりました。私はもう出発しなければなりませんのでいけませんが、駐在にも連絡してあなたの近辺を警戒するように伝えましょう。今日はご自宅ですよね。風邪か何かですか？家にいて戸締まりをしっかりしてください。すぐに警官を行かせます。
Yeah, one person against, what, 20 mountain dogs, they said?
おいさん、
先方との約束の時間ギリギリですよ。
今ね、フルでリカから電話がありました。匿名の電話があり、彼女の命を誰かが狙っているらしいと警告してきたらしいって言うんです。
I say, doesn't Oishi lose one of his police officers in some of the chapters? Maybe it's this officer he's sending over and he's going to get killed by the mountain dogs.
フルでリカをですか？どうして？村のマスコットじゃなかったんですか？
連続開始事件絡みで私と接触してたことに対する警告じゃないかと見てます。本当に殺すかどうかは疑わしいが、彼女も年頃の子供です。命を狙われていると聞かされたら穏やかにはいられないでしょう。それにここで信頼を損なると以後の関係にも支障をきたしますからね。 2,3 人でいいです。大至急行かせてください。あと駐在さんにも連絡して、とりあえず彼女を安心させてあげてください。
了解っす。
Rika Furude might have some kind of hint regarding the mysterious deaths in Hinamizawa. Oishi couldn't let her die.
私たちも現地の分からず宿も締め落としたらすぐにひなみ沢へ行きましょう。ちょいとハードな出張スケジュールになりましたよ。
こんなの楽勝っす。
こちらひばり。駐在警官が境内に入りました。R 宅へ向かっています。
了解。引き続き監視されたし。
Oh yeah, they're dead. They're dead.
R と接触。警官を中に入れました。沖宮署に R から連絡があったようです。自身の身辺警護を依頼したと思われます。
うちらのことは喋ったんかいね。
命を狙われているとの匿名電話があったと言っています。
Yep, they tapped it.
作り話でしょう。またそれとは別に沖宮署から私服警官が数人派遣されるようです。
何年？山犬だけじゃ信用できんって国会ね。
厄介ですね。監視体制にも支障が出ます。
まさか気づいたんじゃねえんかね。そんなわけはないとは思うが、全般に職質に注意しろと伝達。疑われたら意味ないんで、安城警戒しろっちゅう伝えてえな。
了解。本部より全般、古出神社周辺に警察介入の動きあり、職質には特に注意されたし、今夜の決行ですが、様子を見た方がよろしいのでは。
Yep.
連絡はするが、三叉はやるっちゅう言うだろうな。明朝に R の死亡が発覚して話が進むよう、もうお膳立てが済んどるって話だ。警官に不審と思われとない。もし疑われたら、おとなしを引くこっちゃん。
Oishi had called the officers pretty quickly. The officer who was in the area arrived within 10 minutes after I spoke with him. He asked me what kind of phone call I received today. I decided to make up a whole story. It'll all be over if they check my call history, but I'm sure Oishi won't bother doing anything like that. He thinks I'm worth protecting because I have information about the incidents in Hinamizawa. The policeman is one of the villagers, so I know him very well. More officers are coming here from the Okanagi department. The officer told me to relax because he'd stay with me until then. Oishi must have thought I was frightened half to death after getting a threatening phone call. After about 30 minutes, 4 officers in plain clothes arrived at the shrine. The local officer returned to his police box.
状況は聞いています。神社周辺に我々が立ちますので、何かあったらすぐに呼んでください。あと、夕方になったら大石刑事がこっちに来ると言っていました。
Alright, well, she saved herself. She bought herself a day at least. And then hopefully she can talk to her friends and set up something more substantial. I was relieved to learn that Oishi would be coming here.
どうかよろしくお願いしますです。
必ず一人がここの下にいますので、すみませんが、そのものにお手洗いだけは貸してもらってもよろしいですか？あと、緊急時用にそのものに合鍵を預からせることはできますか？
どうぞです。おトイレも貸しますです。
My house is on the second floor of a storage building. The first floor contains emergency supplies for the village. I'm happy to know that at least one police officer will be there for me. The officers confirm their positions on the map of the shrine. One will be in the storage building and 2 more will walk around the shrine property. Also, 1 more officer will be standing in front of the stairs that lead to the shrine. This world's Oishi is certainly reliable. In my other lives, Oishi tended to look at me as his enemy. However, in this world, he thinks I'm on his side. I'm sure it's because we all became friendly with him around the time we saved Sadako. It was unfortunate at the time, but perhaps the return of Sadako's uncle was a necessary event. If Okanagi was right about Eri, he wouldn't be able to come near me with 20 mountain dogs and 4 police officers protecting me. If Okanagi is the bad guy, they'd be discouraged from acting by the presence of the police. Not too different from giving garlic to a vampire. This is the best protection I've had in 100 years. Even so, am I still going to be killed tonight? I need to do whatever I can. I should struggle as hard as possible. I won't give up. I won't even think about my next life. This is what enjoying life is all about. This is what living seriously is all about.
羽生、いる？いますのですよ。どう思う？今回。確かに、僕もこういう展開はあまり見た記憶がありませんのです。今回はひょっとしてって思うことはやっぱり罪なのかしらね。僕は期待も失望もしませんです。ただあるがままに訪れる結果を眺めるのみです。
Hanyu was still acting like a bystander. I knew she was going to say something like that, but part of me was hoping she would say something more positive. Upon hearing her say what she did, I felt a little disappointed and wondered why Hanyu refused to be anything but an onlooker. I always thought it was normal for her to be that way because she's a special existence. I also convinced myself I had to be an onlooker too since I was a similar being. However, I can't just let go of everything and become a bystander. I can't become like her. I can't stop hoping for a better life for Rika Furaday. That hope was betrayed so many times and my heart was crushed countless more. That's why I stopped expecting anything to turn out the way I wanted. So, is Hanyu the same way?
羽生も傷つくのが嫌で期待することをやめた。
I've only lived for 100 years, but I know how frightening it is to have high expectations. Hanyu should also be aware of that since she's lived far longer than me. I always thought that Hanyu was a special existence. But except for the fact she's invisible, everything about us is the same. She has the same thoughts and feelings as everyone else, yet I still saw her as a special existence. That's why I just assumed that her mind worked in a different way.
僕はリカに比べて長くを生きすぎましたのです。喜びより悲しみが後に残り、期待すれば裏切られる方が多いことを知りすぎてしまいました。だからもう何が起こっても心を傷つけたいと思わないのです。だから今回の世界でも私がひょっとするとこの運命から逃れられるかもしれないという期待を、羽生は私がどうせまた失意のうちに殺されると思ってる。そんなことは思ってないのです。
Hanyu looked uncomfortable. She had no doubts I'd be killed again that night. That's what it meant to not have hope. But she just can't own up to it because she doesn't want to hurt my feelings.
羽生も聡子と同じなのね。何かの幸運か誰かが助けて奇跡を起こしてくれるまで戦うことを恐れているだけよ。それを強さだと勘違いしている。つい最近までは私もそうだったけどね。
Hanyu looked down and bit her lip. She couldn't deny what I said.
あんたも何度も聞いてるはず。奇跡ってのはみんなで団結しないと起こせない。団結というのはつまり信じること。みんなで信じないと奇跡は起こせないのよ。
What I just said sounded as though I was blaming her for the miracle not happening. Maybe I was too harsh on her. I stayed quiet and Hanyu continued to look at the floor shaking. Then she looked up at me and spoke. I noticed sadness, but also a little bit of anger in her eyes.
触れることもできず、話すこともできない、見ているしかできない僕も、そのみんなに含まれるのですか？リカに、どんな顛末も見ていることしか許されなかった 僕の気持ちがわかるというのですか？
There was a slight severity in the tail end of Hanyu's speech. Except for me, she can't communicate with anyone in this world. She hates to be reminded of that.
ごめん。やめましょう。この流れは喧嘩になるわね。自分が殺されるまでの貴重な時間を、あんたと喧嘩して過ごしたいとは思わないわ。僕も、リカと喧嘩をしたくはないのです。でも、これだけは言わせて。私とあなたは。だから、友人の人生が、乗るか反るかという時に、期待しないとか、あるがままを受け入れるとか、言ってほしくなかった。そのことは謝りますのです。でも、期待するかしないかは、僕の心の中で、好きにさせてくださいなのです。
She can be very stubborn sometimes. Hanyu seems weak on the outside, but she actually has a very strong moral code, one that she won't bend for anything. She apologized to me, but she wasn't being honest. She still wasn't expecting anything good to come from this world. She still thinks I'm going to die pitifully. That's why she refuses to believe in miracles. I've been living with her long enough to read her mind. I feel bad for her in a sense. She's been living too long and lost all of her hope. Hanyu told me to call her if anything else happened and soon disappeared. I'm sure she's still around. She's probably still watching me as if she's watching a TV show. The time of my death is slowly approaching. Will I be able to survive this time? It's been a long time since I faced this fear without drinking wine. I was left with nothing else to do after washing the dishes and cleaning the room. The mountain dogs and police were protecting me. Just in case, I figured I should leave something behind for Sadako. Should I write down some recipes for her in the notebook? Will she be happy if I leave a will for her? I laughed at my own foolishness. No one would be happy to read a will. If I die, they'll all be devastated and wonder why I didn't talk to them. That's exactly how I felt when Sadako didn't ask for any help when her uncle was abusing her. I wonder, will I be killed before Sadako even comes home? My memories of these days are never very clear. The day I die is always vague in my recollections. It's fine if I'm murdered before Sadako gets home. But if I'm murdered after, then will they kill her along with me? I don't want that to happen. It's bad enough already that I end up killed. If Sadako's murdered along with me each time, that would be too much to bear. Oh yeah, I guess there was the time with Shion, right? Where Sadako did get killed along with Rika, but that happened after Rika died, so she had no idea. Just how much have I ignored other people's sadness with that rash idea that the world ends when I die? Thinking about that made me feel truly ashamed of myself. I turned on the TV to try and reduce the silence, but it didn't help at all. Worse, not only did the TV not help with my fears, it felt like it symbolized Hanyu and my allies, making me feel even more unpleasant. It was past lunchtime, nearly 3 p.m. I'm really hoping that either she manages to sneak out and see her friends, or they come and see her because they refuse to leave her alone. School should be out soon. I'm not there today, so they probably won't do a club activity. Sadako should be home shortly. It seems I'm going to survive until she gets home after all. If she comes home and asks me what's troubling me, I might end up telling her the truth. If I talk to someone, that person will be demoned away by the mountain dogs. That's why I've never spoken to anyone about it. I didn't want my friends to get into danger. But if Sadako was also murdered likewise in every world because she was involved with me, then we're doomed to share the same fate. It's better to know the truth than to be killed without knowing what's going on. But I'm under very strict security right now. I might be able to survive in this world. If that's the case, I shouldn't talk to Sadako about it. Ah, dang it. The problem is that half of her security, I don't believe, is trying to protect her. So, more than half. There's like a couple of police officers, but there's 20 mountain dogs? Like, she doesn't stand a chance. It won't be so easy to talk to my friends after all. I'm still hoping that her friends plus Akasaka will come and save her. Moments later, I heard a surprised yell of Sadako's coming from downstairs. She'd returned. It sounded like she was scared to see a stranger in our home. I'd have to tell her the police were here. That would be tantamount to telling her someone is out to kill me. I don't know how to explain it to her or how much I should tell her. However, my thoughts were soon interrupted by the noise of a crowd. Ooh, a crowd. Sadako hadn't come home alone. Hell yeah! It's just like, oh my god, Sadako! She's doing what Rika did for her. She's gonna have, like, the whole village is coming to protect Rika. Right?
ただいまでございますのよ。
Or by a crowd, is it just her friends? But either way, that's awesome.
それよりリカ、下のおまわりさんは何なんですの？
私服警官が護衛してるなんてどういうわけよ。あんた一体何をしでかしたの？
みーちゃん聞くこと違う。
I knew they wouldn't leave her alone. I knew it. After hearing from Keiichi, I knew they wouldn't just let her be. That's the whole point of this
一体
game,
何があっ
right?
たの、リカちゃん。
The whole point of the story is to trust in people.
境内の中にも見慣れない人がいました。あれも私服警官ですか？ただごとじゃないんですけど。
俺たちリカちゃんが何を悩んでるのか知らないが、みんなで励まそうって思ってきたんだ。でもどうやらそんな悠長な事態じゃねえようだな。
I couldn't stop laughing upon seeing everyone rush into my house, all asking the same questions. It made me feel as though being depressed all day had just been a waste of time.
リカ、笑ってる場合じゃありませんでしたよ。どういうことなのか説明してくださいまし。
どうもこうもないのです。今日は僕が殺される日なのです。
Damn, just straight up.
はぁ？
Everyone already knew I'd been telling people about how I was going to be killed, but they were surprised to hear it from my own mouth.
なあリカちゃん、俺は確かに昨日リカちゃんから聞いた。自分は誰かに殺されるみたいな話をな。でもそれはリカちゃんの冗談みたいなもんだと思ってた。だがな、もうごまかすのはなしだぜ。話してもらうぜ。
Keiichi spoke with a harsh tone as though I'd made him upset. As my friend, he must think it's unforgivable I didn't talk to him about it. He wasn't the only one feeling that way, though. Every single one of them was looking at me with worried expressions on their faces.
リカ、私はみんなに助けてもらいましたの。だから私もみんなのために何かの助けをしたいんですのよ。
気持ちだけで嬉しいのです。
リカが自分で私に言いましたのよ。戦う勇気を持てと。あなたは自分でそう私に言っておきながら実践していないではございませんの。
Sadako pointed out something I'd have already realized. I had no way to argue back.
リカちゃんは話せば巻き込まれるって言ったんだよね。リカちゃんが話さなくても私たちは巻き込まれる気でいるんだよ。
そうさ、俺たちは仲間で、リカちゃんの危機はメンバー全体の危機さ。かつてサトコが危機だった時もメンバー全体の危機として戦った。それと同じだよ。
命を狙われるとか物騒な話になれば、ますます園崎家の出番だと思いますけれど、それこそ物騒な話に及ぶなら警察より頼もしいですよ。ねえおね。そうだよ。こういうことこそ相談してほしいね。何をトラブったの？リカちゃんを殺すって脅迫するなんてとんでもない野郎だよ。
まあリカちゃんの口の重さを見る限り、心当たりがないのか薄いのかのどちらかだな。
See, this concerns me because this is called the massacre chapter, right? And it's like Keiichi said, if, we're involved either way, so what if this is the chapter where they all get killed?
相手が分かってりゃ楽な話なんだからな。
みんなは鋭いので、僕が何も話さなくても勝手に話が進んでしまうのです。
リカ、はぐらかさないでほしいですわよ。ちゃんとお話しなさいませ。一体何があったんですの？これはどういうことなんですの？警察が来るなんてよっぽどのことですのよ。警察には話せて、どうして私たちには話してくれませんの？
私たちには話しにくい理由なの？
リカに話しにくいようなやましい理由なんてあるわけありませんでしたよ。
落ち着け、サトコ。リカちゃんはこう見えても御三家の当主なんだぞ。お社様の生まれ変わりなんて呼ばれて年寄り連中に盲信されてるんだ。俺たちの想像のつかないところで何か厄介なことに巻き込まれていたということもあるかもしれない。そういうごたごたをこれからこの村で楽しく過ごしていこうっていう俺たちに話したくなかったとか、そういうのじゃないのか？
Man, he is perceptive. Ren is perceptive, but so is he.
村とリカちゃまに関わるヤバい話ですか。となると、お社様を盲信する年寄り連中の絡みとしか思えません。ってことは、時期的に考えて、お社様のたたり関係か。あれだ。富武さんと高野さんが殺された件絡みじゃないかな。
どうして富武さんたちが殺された事件がリカちゃんに関連して、リカちゃんが命を狙われなくちゃならないの？話が突飛すぎるよ。
命が狙われてるって時点で十分話がぶっ飛んでる。俺たちが普段知る以上のしがらみがリカちゃんにあって、それを話せないってことなんだろうな。ビンゴだろ。あまり楽しい話じゃないから、むしろ仲間には話せないってんだろ。
信じられないですわ。本当なんですの、リカ。何か村とか富武さんたちの事件とかそういうのが関係していますの？
I remained silent, but with my mouth open. I hadn't answered any of their questions, but they continued to ask, and it eventually hit the nail on the head. It was more surprising than anything. But then again, these are, after all, my beloved clubmates. I laughed once more. My issues and my secrets are so devastating to me, but they stopped sounding like such a big deal when everyone talked about them together. They knew exactly what was going on without me saying a word. In that moment, I realized just how powerless I am. I had to tip my hat to them. Everything seemed so foolish now. And so I decided to just tell them everything.
話せと言うなら、話しますです。でも、どうせ信じられませんのです。
信じるさ。リカちゃんが真実を語る限り、俺たちは疑わない。
Everyone's expressions turned grave as they vowed not to make light of anything I told them. And so I'm going to tell them everything. I want to see if they really will believe me or not.
なら、話します。多分、私は、富武と高野を殺した犯人に狙われています。
ってことは、それって、連続開始事件の真犯人ってこと？
それはわかりません。ですが、その可能性もあります。
意味がわかりづらいですわね。どうして富武さんや高野さんを殺した人がさらにリカも殺さないといけませんの？
Oishi thinks Takano was the culprit. Okanagi thinks that Eri is the culprit. Either way, it sounds like someone from Tokyo is trying to kill me. I can't tell if it's Takano or Eri, but I do know that to them I'm like a trump card. In order to explain everything, I need to talk to them about the relationship between HINAMIZAWA, Tokyo, and the Eri Clinic. I don't think they'll believe me. It's such a ridiculous story. But who would ever believe it if not my friends?
話せば、みんな巻き込まれますです。いいのですか？
いいに決まってるぜ。リカちゃんが巻き込まれた時点で、すでに俺たちも巻き込まれているんだからな。
Everyone nodded at Keiichi's words.
では、話しますです。
I'm going to see how everyone reacts. I'm going to ascertain what friendship is all about. With a nod of my own, I opened my mouth and began to explain. Alright, here we go. We're going to get like a full... We've been getting hints here and there about what's going on, but it'd be nice to just have it all laid out.
ひなみざわには、ある特別な病気があるのです。その病気の名前は、仮なのか正式なのかわかりませんですが、ひなみざわ症候群と呼ばれていますです。
Everyone glanced back and forth at each other when I mentioned the term. They'd never heard of it before. The name Hinamizawa syndrome has actually been around since before the war. It's the general term for the severe homesickness and mental instability that people from Hinamizawa experience when outside of the village. People in Hinamizawa have refused to leave the village since the era of Onagafuchi. The villagers believed they'd be cursed by Oyashiro-sama if they left, and people who did often came back because of that curse. In general, it used to be thought of as only severe homesickness. But during the war, soldiers from Hinamizawa became mentally deranged in faraway places. That does sometimes happen in war. What was unique about the soldiers from Hinamizawa was the way that they killed their own comrades and committed suicide at the end. One doctor became curious about these cases and studied those soldiers. That's when they found out it was actually a disease only found in Hinamizawa. According to this doctor, their strange behavior was not the result of their culture. It was a mental disease triggered by external circumstances. A mental disease with an external cause is different from a psychological illness. It's the result of some kind of physical disorder, and it causes people to become mentally unstable when something triggers it. There are 3 categories of externally caused mental diseases: traumatically induced, substance abuse induced, and chemical imbalance induced. Traumatically induced disorders are cases resulting from damage to the brain from trauma or infection that influences the mind. This is the reason personalities can change as a result of head injuries. Substance abuse, as the name suggests, refers to cases where drugs, especially alcohol or stimulants, have influenced the mind. The last category is chemical imbalances. These are cases where some ailment in the patient's body causes abnormal secretions of bodily chemicals, which then influence the brain's functions. This may sound odd, but it's been said that people tend to become depressed when they have a cold. We've all experienced the ways in which physical sickness can cause a buildup of negative emotions. However, with chemical imbalances, the cause is more direct. People's emotions aren't born from our hearts. Everyone should know logically that they're the results of chemicals secreted by the organs in our body as necessary. So when the organs operating the secretion of those emotional controllers malfunction, it causes them to secrete abnormal amounts. The thyroid gland, for example, secretes hormones that regulate emotions. When that gland is defective, the balance of those hormones becomes unstable. This can cause people to have not only a physical sickness, but also a mental sickness such as depression. People don't get mentally ill just because of mental problems. Human beings are made of meat. We get mentally ill when that meat is defective. The doctor studying Hinamizawa syndrome also came up with a theory. He suggested that there's a pathogen endemic to Hinamizawa that, if its hosts stray too far from home, affects the chemicals in their brain and causes them to hallucinate. Ooh, so this is sort of like that, the parasite theory, sorta kinda, that was mentioned in the last episode, which I really was into. I really like this idea of it being an actual physical and mental sickness. I think that is so cool, because it kind of like, I like that it's a combination of like, there is some supernatural themes to this game, obviously, with Hanyu, and Rika being able to travel back in time and repeat things, but there's also kind of like a science, something more concrete, like an illness, a mental disorder. I think that's really cool. Maybe it's just because, like, I studied psychology, so of course, like, I like to lean towards that idea of it, but yeah, I'm glad that it kind of ended up, this is what causes it. The villagers' belief in Oyashiro-sama is certainly related to this endemic disease. People in Onagafuchi village knew about the syndrome. They knew that they couldn't survive outside the village. They also didn't want anyone else to enter the village because they would get infected too. They took this disease as a curse, not a sickness. The most significant symptoms of this disease are antisocial behavior and an extreme persecution complex. The eventual suicide caused by defects in the lymph nodes are also another unique characteristic. The unusual behavior of terminal patients is what inspired the legend of demons coming out of the swamp and attacking the villagers. And I like, it's cool too that, of course, like, it's a small Japanese village, it's very rooted in folklore and things like that, so they take these syndromes and the symptoms of a actual disorder and, a disease, and they interpret that as something being supernatural. Basically, sick villagers developed severe persecution complexes and wound up killing other villagers. After a long time, survivors of the disease started to comprehend its rules. Now, this is like rule X, rule Y, things like that. They discovered that the disease is incurable once you contract it. That's why they started barring outsiders from entering the village. Also, once you become ill, you will begin developing a persecution complex. This can happen to anyone in the village. The doctrine of Oyashiro-sama says that the blood of humans and demons was mixed together, and that Oyashiro-sama has control over the violent blood of the demons. People said that you'd be cursed if you didn't follow Oyashiro-sama's rules. That could also be understood to mean as long as you followed Oyashiro-sama's rules, you could cope with this endemic disease. This is what was meant by the scripture in Oyashiro-sama's legend that said they appeared, unified the humans and demons, and made them live together in this village. Then there was the most important part. The rules to prevent symptoms from appearing. Those rules are the taboos, and people were strictly taught that Oyashiro-sama would curse them if they broke those rules. The horrible, bloody traditions of the village was probably performed in order to force people to respect these taboos. There are several ways to keep the disease under control, but there are two main conditions for doing so. The first one is to prevent suspicion. When the villagers are suspicious of someone, it can trigger their persecution complex, which can lead to them developing terminal symptoms. That's why they made sure to have such a tightly knit community so that people wouldn't suspect each other. Since the terror of Oyashiro-sama's curse is emphasized, many don't know this, but she's also a god of marriage and neighborly love. However, this condition is not as important as the other one. Indeed, Oyashiro-sama isn't even recognized as a god of friendship in Hinamizawa anymore, and is only worshipped as such in Okanamiya's Hirosaka district. Now for the other condition. This one is much clearer and was practiced more strictly. If villagers leave Hinamizawa, they will fall ill quickly, proportional to the distance from the village. Villagers nowadays will not get sick as rapidly, even if they leave town or even go out of the country for a long time. However, long ago they would fall ill as soon as they left the village. It's very unfortunate that Keiji got infected so soon after he moved to the village. It was also very unfortunate that he got sick just because he left the village for a few days to go to his relative's funeral in that one world. Oh, okay. That's why Hanyu felt so bad for him that time and kept on apologizing over and over. That's Hanyu! The person who was saying, I'm sorry, was that Hanyu the whole time when people hear someone apologizing? Although no matter how much he apologized, he never heard her voice. But he did. Didn't he? I feel like he did. This turned into a long discussion, but these rules etched around Oyashiro-sama's curse represented the ancient wisdom of how to cope with the Hinamizawa syndrome. Is there any way to use this mental disease for military purposes? The aforementioned doctor insisted there was, but the military didn't listen to him at all the time. Or at the time. They were interested in developing a weapon that could make a dramatic change to the war efforts. They didn't have any money to spare for the research of this strange disease. In this way, research on Hinamizawa syndrome was abandoned. Then the war ended. Japan started its reconstruction under American leadership. Oh, so I'm wondering if the Hinamizawa disaster was them releasing some sort of gas or something to try and see if they can infect the whole village. They were basically like a testing ground, but it ended up just killing everybody instead. And that's why all of those people, you know, in the hazmat suits, it must have been like maybe a secret thing from Tokyo that was just trying to clean things up and trying to contain things. So maybe they are trying to use the disease and they're trying to test to see if they can use it for war purposes, and they basically just use the villagers of Hinamizawa as kind of like their guinea pigs, and just like, we'll just release the gas. We managed to put into an airborne gas, we'll release it, and we'll see what happens. And maybe they just all died, and they're like, oh, crap, that's not what we wanted to happen, so we'll have to try and contain this. However, some powerful people in the political world didn't want to accept the American way of thinking. Some of them were fired by the GHQ, but they still stayed on as advisors to the government, since Japan had a culture of respecting the elderly. Eventually, a political organization was formed, the object of which was to restore Japan to the way it was before the war. In the beginning, this organization was a very small group. It was just a gathering of 2 or 3 individuals who shared the same ideals blowing hot air at a restaurant. Those 2 or 3 hit it off with each other and grew to a size of a class reunion. That group became a rather sizable organization, eventually becoming a political one. Well, it would be more accurate to call them a secret society. The secret society eventually came to be called by the name of the place where it was based, Tokyo. There are many mysteries about Tokyo. One thing I knew for sure is it was One thing I know for sure is that it was composed of old people from Japan's political stage, ones with strong power to indirectly influence the government and vast assets that meant they could work from the shadows. So that's interesting because you think when you think of, oh, they're coming from Tokyo, they think, oh, they're coming from the city. It's just like, it's a government thing. But Tokyo is actually a secret society. Okay. They were also connected to various corporations, and their goal was to return Japan to the way it was before the war. Of course, that was a pretty ridiculous goal. It was nothing more than an idea in their minds immediately after the war, back when they were still bowing their heads to the occupational forces of those white barbarians. Once Japan's post-war reconstruction began, Tokyo steadily became a shell of its former self. But it didn't totally become a shell, it culled the fat. Japan regained its peace, and years passed. However, some people still continued to believe that Japan had been better before the war, and they were determined to return the country to those times. So this Tokyo plotted how to restore pre-war Japan from many angles. They approached the problem economically, internationally, and militarily as well. Japan had no nuclear armaments due to the 3 non-nuclear principles. In other words, this country has to brown-nose America as long as they hold nuclear weapons. The #1 priority of Tokyo is to be independent from America. They want this country to be on equal footing, and to obtain a weapon of mass destruction that isn't nuclear in nature. Ah, okay, so they are going to weaponize the disease. That was the reason why they started thinking about utilizing Hinamizawa syndrome. However, they couldn't study this disease openly. In order to utilize it for military purposes, they had to hide the existence of the disease itself. So, they enlisted one young researcher, Kiyosuke Iri. I need to make it clear that Iri isn't some far-right supporter of this secret society. He's just a young, capable doctor and an earnest researcher. He published an innovative thesis, but other academics thought he was too radical. However, that convinced Tokyo that he was the only researcher suitable to study Hinamizawa syndrome. As someone young and ambitious, Iri was thrilled to take on the project of studying this rare disease with a large budget, a large staff, and his own facility. But researching the disease would mean that he'd end up infected too. No one would want to take on such dangerous research. He really was too young, with his other option being wearing down his youth working hard at the night shift for a local practice. He wanted to answer the expectations of the sponsor who carefully selected him. In the end, Iri was able to uncover that, as hypothesized, the Hinamizawa syndrome was a unique infectious disease, and he developed both a treatment and a vaccine. Iri was extremely talented. The Iri Institute was formed to study the disease. Iri was nominally the head of the organization, but Tokyo still sent out a supervisor because when all was said and done, he was just a researcher. That supervisor was Mio Takano. Takano's job at the Institute was to act as a go-between for Tokyo and Iri, manage the research progress, and preserve its secrecy. The latter was the most important part of her job. She had to do her best to prevent people from finding out that Iri was researching the disease, or even that the disease exists at all. The Mountain Dogs were formed for that purpose. They were under Takano's command, and their job is to prevent the Institute's secrets from being discovered. The Mountain Dogs are one special forces unit specializing in unconventional warfare and owned by Tokyo with its vast influence on the SDF. Tokyo had set their eyes on the likelihood that a small elite squad of covert operatives would be a trump card in the anti-nuke era, so they vigorously investigated those options. This was a worldwide trend since the Cold War. Everyone avoided sending troops directly to their enemies' doorsteps. Japan was also trying to be part of that world. As a result, by 1983, even the police have been forming secret special forces units. Prefectural Police Squad 2, the ones who intervened when Rena laid siege to her school, changed their name to Zero Company and grew into an anti-terrorism squad that handled hijackings around the Kansai airport area. The National Police Agency's Squad 6 was formed as a counter-terrorism squad for Narita Airport 2, and they later changed their name to 7th Company as well. They theorized that in a world where nations possess nukes they can't use, small elite special forces disrupting metropolitan areas would be the new way of waging war. So in 1977, they developed the SAT's predecessor, the Special Task Group, SAP, to serve as the National Police Agency's trump card in securing the peace. Likewise, the Japan Coast Guard established their Special Task Force, the SST, in anticipation of unconventional warfare on the coast. There are several known special forces units in Japan. When they hear a phrase like special forces, most people tend to think of a movie or comic book. However, these units actually exist and are protecting Japan in secret. During the famous incident of suspicious boats off the coast of Noto Peninsula, the news reported that the boats sank before the helicopter squad trained in gun battles, so the squad was recalled, but that was because the Coast Guard's SST acted. However, the news never mentions the SST or any other special forces unit. All of these units were established after Tokyo made a suggestion about it to the government. Researching military tactics under the name of peace and order worked perfectly for Tokyo. But since the mid-century anti-war movement made people resent those forces, these special units have been kept secret as of 1983. Furthermore, these units are not all formed under the jurisdiction of the police. There are still many other military units that are kept secret from the average citizen. The Mountain Dogs are actually one of those special units. They specialize in kidnapping, espionage, and preserving secrecy. You might as well call them an assassination unit. They were around during the dam conflict as well. Tokyo worked to put an end to the dam project because of the impact it would have on Erie's research. The Mountain Dogs were the ones who kidnapped the Minister of Construction's grandson. Oh, okay. Right, yeah, because, Mion's grandma said that the Sonozakis didn't have anything to do with that, so, okay. Most people believe the Sonozaki family were at the center of the movement, but in reality, the Mountain Dogs were responsible for many of the things the Sonozakis were accused of. Okay, it's all coming together. In that sense, the existence of the Sonozaki family was an advantage to the dogs, because they were like a scapegoat. Their main job after the dam conflict ended had been to continue keeping the disease hidden from the public. With the spread of information networks in the modern age, the media jumped on any unusual incident and quickly aired it to the whole nation. Tokyo doesn't want the disease to be known nationwide since they're trying to utilize it for their own purposes. The main task of the Mountain Dogs is to kidnap people suffering from Hinamizawa syndrome. They pose as gardeners, but in actuality, they patrol the village to make sure nothing strange happens. Oh my gosh, it's like all coming together, like when Rena was being tracked by those people and she was seeing them everywhere. It's because they knew she had the syndrome. They're the ones who demon away people who go missing. They're probably also involved in some of the mysterious deaths, too. The last important person is Jiro Tomatake. I don't know his real name. He was an auditor who was sent from Tokyo 4 times a year. He came to check on the progress of the research and outlined requests from Tokyo. He discussed the research budget with Erie, too. He also got the observation report on Erie from Takano. That was his purpose. Erie started out by studying the autopsy results of dead villagers, and he discovered many answers from that. In 1979, the Mountain Dogs kidnapped the culprit behind the murder of the construction chief, who was a terminal patient of Hinamizawa syndrome. The nature of the disease was dramatically clarified. Their research made rapid progress after that, and they discovered a vaccine, medication, and other methods of treatment for the disease. At the same time, they continued to investigate how to utilize it for military purposes. One of the interesting findings of the research was that the pathogen can only be found when the patient is still alive. On top of that, they couldn't detect the presence of the pathogen at all unless they used a certain inhumane method. In other words, it's virtually impossible to detect the pathogen by normal means. It left almost no trace, and the unusual symptoms it produced seemed like voluntary behavior, so they concluded that the disease could be used to their advantage. However, Tokyo had been going through some changes. It's been almost 50 years since the war ended. The leaders and shadows behind Japan's government who ruled from the center of Tokyo began growing infirm and opening up seats, steadily passing their leadership to the new generation. The whole organization had started to shift. Of course, the purpose of Tokyo has stayed the same. It's still a secret society of ultra-nationalists who want Japan to be at the top of the world. However, their ambition to start a war with America and take over the world has diminished. Tokyo has directed its priorities towards the economy, international affairs, and education. That doesn't mean that those ambitions are gone entirely, however. Several seniors still alive retain those ambitions. Tokyo continues to finance military research. But for the present-day Tokyo, Erie's research is actually something of an embarrassment. The new Tokyo is no longer interested in his project, and they announce that they're going to cut their budget as soon as the seniors pass away. However, Erie objected to that plan. He strongly appealed for the continuation of his research. This is what Okanagi was talking about. Erie is in disagreement with Tokyo. Erie's research has been making great progress. They've discovered various treatment and testing methods, and he's even starting to develop a treatment plan for the whole village. If they cut his funding, Erie's research would end without any results. Tokyo had a discussion with Erie through Tomitake, and they decided to shut down his research partially, but not fully. However, they told him to immediately stop researching military applications of the disease and destroy all the research data related to that. He had little interest in weaponizing the disease anyway, so Erie accepted those terms right away. Tokyo probably believed it was better to let him find a cure for the disease than to terminate the project entirely. I'm like, so Rika? Is Rika the one telling them all this? Like, man, she knows a lot. Like, I know she's kind of part of the research a little bit because they're doing tests and stuff on her, but that's a lot of information for her to know, unless she just knows this from living these 100 years what's going on. But this seems like a lot for Rika to know. At this point, Erie considers himself one of the villagers. Like, I don't know if this is Rika telling everybody this, or if this is just the game telling us this. Perhaps exterminating the disease infecting the villagers without his knowledge is his way of atoning for using the villagers to advance his research and reputation. So it's interesting that they said they didn't want to use it for military purposes anymore. So if that's true, then that kind of, that puts a kibosh on my theory about the Hinamizawa disaster. Both Tokyo and Erie agreed to fully terminate his research as soon as he discovered a way to completely eradicate Hinamizawa syndrome. Erie made a plan for the next 3 years, and he promised them he would find a resolution by 1986 at the latest. The meeting they had this June was to discuss the plan and budget for the next 3 years. Which brings us back to the beginning. One theory goes that Erie is in opposition with Tokyo, and as his trump card, he's planning to kill Rika Furude. Okay, so this is the game saying it, not Rika. The other theory is Takano killed Tomitake, and as her trump card, she's going to kill Rika Furude. I suppose I need to explain why Rika Furude can be a trump card. The answer to that lies in the ancient traditions of Hinamizawa. Supposedly, members of Furude family have the blood of Oishiro-sama in their veins. I explained earlier that Oishiro-sama was made up as a method for having people cope with a disease. However, that's actually not true. For the demons, the pathogens, to survive, a certain being must be present. That being is the successor of the Furude family line. The truth behind the advent of Oishiro-sama and the coexistence of humans and demons is that Oishiro-sama was actually the queen of the village. According to Erie's research, Rika is adored by the whole village not only because she's a charming little girl, but because she's the queen carrier. Infected patients are unconsciously driven to protect their queen. Oh, okay, interesting. Erie says this is done with pheromones. It's like a bee! It's like a queen bee! Rika Furude's mother was also adored by everyone since she was little. However, as soon as she gave birth, people's attentions quickly shifted to Rika, so that could be another reason why Rika's mother didn't care for her. Erie calls it the succession of the throne. The queen is a precious existence to people in this village. There are theories that carriers of the disease are actually unable to survive when away from the queen, not from the village itself. Erie's research indicates the queen can only survive in Hinamizawa, and infected patients can only stay alive when they're around her. So that kind of like puts the kibosh on her being able to just like escape from Hinamizawa and hide out for a bit. That's not going to work. But this is just a theory. Surprisingly, however, the doctor who first discovered the syndrome was also aware of the existence of the queen. That doctor was also knowledgeable about Hinamizawa's culture, and he was interested in how much value the village placed on the Furude family. He theorized the queen lying in the Furude bloodline might have the power to manipulate the whole village. The truth is still unknown, but perhaps the Furude family really has held such power since ancient times, miraculous power that would make them perfect for serving in the priesthood. Although the only thing Rika can do is be doted upon by the villagers. If all this is true, the question is what would happen if the queen disappeared from the village? During the war, a doctor prophesied that if the queen were to die, then all the infected would show terminal symptoms, and the whole village would be wiped out. Oh shit! Oh shit, so it's like her death brought upon the Hinamizawa disaster, maybe. Because the Hinamizawa disaster always happens after she's dead. Oh shit. Interesting. He advocated for strict preservation of the queen's host. Rika is important to Tokyo not only because Eri found many answers after running tests on her body. If Rika Furde dies, the 2,000 people in Hinamizawa will turn into demons. Oh shit. It would happen too fast for people to even realize they're getting sick. They will each be overcome with a violent persecution complex and start killing each other out of fear. This is why the mountain dogs are protecting the queen, Rika Furde. Her death spells the end of the whole village. So they don't want to kill her? Okay, That's why Rika Furde is the trump card for those who know she's the center of the whole epidemic. Damn, I never thought that would be the cause of... Okay, that's interesting. This is the story of Hinamizawa. So I guess Rika's gonna definitely have to have a daughter, if she does end up surviving. Otherwise, once she dies, that's it for the village, I guess. So they always have to have a daughter and continue the bloodline. And didn't they say, like, the seventh, they said, like, every seventh descendant of, I can't remember, something about the descendants, there's, like, a sixth or seventh one is, like, the reincarnation of Oyashiro-sama? Our tale begins in June 1983. Tokyo's liaison, Tomatake, was found dead of the disease even though he was vaccinated against it. On the same night, Takano was also kidnapped and murdered. Though I don't know for sure if she's really dead or not. Rika Furde is also going to be murdered soon enough. While I've suspected Eri and Takano, this was my first time doubting Tokyo. I always thought they were on my side. They had to be. My death would lead to nothing but disaster. At the same time, there might be people within Tokyo who could use my death as a trump card. I never considered there were opposing factions within Tokyo. I guess I was naive enough to not realize Tokyo had internal problems due to the generation gap. Anyway, I wouldn't be feeling this way if I didn't suspect that Takano might still be alive. I feel like I'm starting to see the greater picture. It's possible, too, that Takano was the victim and Eri is the bad guy. The mountain dogs might be on my side, or they might be assassins who are trying to kill me. I was too scared to choose a wine that might be at risk of having something poisonous mixed in which case I could rest assured with a fresh, unopened bottle even if it was a little bad. After telling everything to my friends, I finally realized I can only trust them and the police. I'm really dumb. I thought I was thinking so hard, but I never actually understood anything. That sounds like me. I'm always thinking in this game, but then I feel like I don't know anything either. After all this time, I made things clear just by talking about them with my friends. I'd never have thought it would make such a big difference.
Mi, 僕の話はこれで終わりなのです。
As I thought, everyone is staring at me with their mouths open in shock. Even Oishi wouldn't believe a story like this. That's only normal. I'm sure I sound like a crazy person.
さとこ、僕たちが毎週診療所に研究のお手伝いに行っていますですよね。あれは入江の研究に協力しているだけではないのです。さとこの治療のためでもあったのです。
そうだ。そういえば、さとこが病気みたいなことを言ってたよな。
私が
Oh, she doesn't even know? Oh, or she's just playing dumb.
理科の話なら私だけじゃなく、この村に住むみんなが、
Duh.
みんなその怪しげな病気にかかってることになるんじゃありませんの？
Stupid me. Of course she knows she's sick, because she has to take her medication. That was a really dumb thing for me to be like, wait, what? She doesn't know she's sick?
でも、どうして私だけがお注射しなくちゃいけないんですの？監督の作っている新型の栄養剤の実験じゃないんでございますの？
さとこは一度末期症状を迎えてしまっているのです。だから日に2回のお注射がないとすぐに症状がぶり返してしまうのです。入江はさとこを救おうと特に熱心に研究してくれていました。でも毎日2回の注射をしなくてもいい体にはどうしても戻す方法が見つけられなかった。 でも、いつか見つけると意気込んで、今日も熱心に研究を続けてくれていますです。
冗談じゃないですわよ。私たち、監督の怪しげな研究に協力してお金をいただいてるんじゃありませんの？あんな注射、一生やれなんて冗談っぽいでございましたよ。
Sadako looked upset. She'd been completely ignorant of all this. She also didn't want to accept the reality of having to manage her condition. Her fake laughter sadly echoed in everyone's ears. Keiichi opened his mouth to speak.
その注射を一回でもしないと、あの日みたいになるんだな。
There was a day where she forgot to take her shot. She convinced herself the principal was her uncle. Her fear escalated and she thought her uncle came inside the school to take her back home. Once she feels that way, there's no turning back for her.
そうです。だから、僕は聡子がお注射を忘れないように、毎日しつこく言っているのです。
そんな、信じられませんわ。大体何なんですの、末期症状って。私だけそんなの嫌ですわよ。どうして私が、いつそんな末期症状になったって言うんですの？
Sadako's face contorted as tears began to flow from her eyes. I shouldn't have said this. Sadako is starting to remember something she's not supposed to.
ごめん、聡子。思い出さなくていいのです。あれは事故なのです。聡子は何も悪くないのですよ。
Oh, what? What? Did she have what?
嘘ですわ。嘘ですわ。
It must be something to do with Satoshi.
リカは全部嘘ばっかりなんですわ。
The others probably had no idea what Sadako was talking about. They don't need to know. They don't want to know about it because they're her friends. I want to know. Rena gently touched Sadako's shoulder. She gently touched mine too.
私たちは、リカちゃんの話、ちゃんと信じてるよ。ありがとうです。そして、今まで自分一人で、よくそれだけの大変なことを背負ってきたね。リカちゃんは偉いよ。たった一人で、今日まで人に言えない秘密を背負ってきたんだね。
I never thought Rena would say something like that to me. My eyes were filling up with tears.
人に話せない秘密を背負うってのは、悲しくて重いよね。私のは、リカちゃんに比べたら、全然大したことないけどさ、少しはわかるつもりだよ。
そうですね。お姉もよく頑張ってます。お姉になすりつけて楽させてもらってるから、よくわかりますよ。
みんなは、僕の話を疑わないのですか？
どうして疑うんだよ。全部信じるって言ったじゃねえか。むしろ、村の秘密が解けたような気がして、俺はすっきりしたくらいだぜ。その、HINAMIZAWA症候群という病気は感染症で、村に住んでる人はみんなかかってるのかな？
はい、みんななのです。でも、昔とは違います。鬼ヶ淵村の頃に比べると、この病気はとてもおとなしくなりましたです。だから、別に遠くへ引っ越しても平気ですし、旅行だってへっちゃらなのです。
ただし、ものすごく低い確率で発症するってんだろ？俺、怖くてもう村を出られねえな。
もし病気にかかっても、簡単な心構えで病気は抑えられるのです。それは、とても簡単だけど、難しいこと。
If you think you might be suspicious of someone, don't be. Continue to trust in them. When you become too suspicious of someone, that suspicion will degenerate into a persecution complex, and it will be too late. So long as everyone stays friendly and united, we never have to worry about this disease. This disease starts with anxiety. Modern people don't believe in curses the way people long ago did. That might be why we're more tolerant to the disease.
なんだ。なら私たちは全然平気だね。
だな。俺たちは仲間で、部活メンバーで。 間違っても仲間を疑ったりするもんか。だからリカちゃんの話、俺は丸ごと信じるぞ。そんなヤバい話をすれば、俺たちがその山犬って連中に消されるかもしれないって思って、ずっと言えなかったわけだろ。
I nodded quietly. I don't want to think the mountain dogs have bugged this room. But if Okanagi overhears this conversation, they will definitely kill not only me, but all my friends tonight. That's true no matter who my enemy is.
ま、だとすると、すぐに部活メンバーは臨戦態勢に入った方が良さそうだね。状況を整理しよう。リカちゃんを殺すと大惨事になると信じてる連中が、リカちゃんの命を狙う可能性がある。間違いないね。
可能性でなく、必ず殺しに来ますです。
どうかな。リカちゃんが切り札なら、そんな簡単に切っちゃう？
そうでございますわよ。切り札は殿下の宝刀。向かないうちが花ですもの。
Sadako's eyes were still swollen, but she had stopped crying.
甘いですね、さとこ。切り札は2枚以上あるときに限り、すぐ1枚切ります。そうだね。人質は複数で初めて成立する。一人の人質の価値は、複数の時に比べて格段に落ちるからね。
とにかく、向こうの状況がさっぱりわからねえ以上、殺されないなんて楽観はありえねえな。
Everyone nodded in unison.
みーちゃんは、山犬って人たちをどう思う？敵かな？味方かな？
それは問題じゃないだろうね。僕は善良な狼ですって人に羊の番を頼むかい？
疑わしきは黒でございましたよ。その東京とかいう連中と全く関わりのない人たちに助けを求めた方がいいですわね。
だな。その意味では、リカちゃんが即警察に応援を求めたのは、迅速ないい判断ってことになるぜ。
Because Oishi said he was going to be back tonight, so as long as they can survive tonight, hopefully they'll be good.
大石さんは、俺たちの味方なんだよな。
はい。大石には、すべてを話してはいませんので。僕の命を狙っているのを、連続開始事件の犯人。つまり、
大石さんにも、真実を話した方がいいと思うな。大人の力は重要だよ。
リスクのある一手ですわね。
Akasaka, he had to come back for a reason. Let's get him in on this.
かえって嘘くさくなって手を引かれるとまずいんではありませんの？
He said that he owes her a favor. This is it. Call in your favor.
いや、大石さんには話そう。あの人、今年が定年で、昔殺された友達の仇を討つ、最後のチャンスだって言ってた。だからきっと、どんな嘘くさい話でも、信じてくれると思うんだ。
うん。大石さんは、さとこちゃんを助けるときにも、警察の立場でありながら、私たちに協力してくれた。頼もしい味方になってくれると思うな。
よし。
It's funny how Oishi flipped from being like the guy, like, I don't like this guy, I don't trust this guy, and now he's kind of like, you're our last hope, please help us. We trust you completely.
大石には話そう。で、大石は今はしょ？
いえ、隣の県に行っています。高野の死体を確かめに。
ああ、隣の県の山の中でしたっけ？ドラム缶の中で黒焦げって話。でも、なんでわざわざ大石ともあろう人が直々なんでしょうね。
高野の死体が違う可能性があるらしいのです。現地の県警が協力的じゃなくてあやふやなことを言ってるらしいです。
その山犬って連中は機密保持と情報操作が仕事じゃなかったっけ？あたしゃなんだかその死体おかしいなーって思うね。というかあの人おとなしく焼いたくらいで死ぬとは思えないんだよね。
もちろん入江が黒幕で高野を殺した可能性もありますです。山犬のOkanagiはそうだと言っていますです。
監督が黒幕ってことはねえだろう。あの人は悪い人じゃねえと思うんだ。
そうですわよ。目と意と動発言禁止にしてくれれば基本的にはいい人でございますのよ。
私もひなみざわファイターズの幽霊マネージャーとして監督は黒幕なんて玉じゃないと思います。どっちかというと利用される感じの人です。いい人すぎるというか。
はあ、誰も高野さんの肩を持ってあげない。
いやさ、監督と高野さん、どっちが悪い人ですかって聞かれたら、なあ。
It's like, Coach is weird, but he's like an innocent weird, whereas Takano is weird, but she's like a sadistic weird, so.
高野さんが聞いたら怒りますわね。
Everyone laughed as though we were in the middle of a club activity. If they're after my life, they'll kill everyone here. This is just like the biggest club activity. This is the peak club activity. It's very possible they'll all get involved in this mess, and they know that. That they could still laugh is really significant, I think. I started laughing along too.
客観的に見て高野さんだけ隣の県で死体が見つかるのがすでにおかしいよ。富武さんを殺した風に偽装するなら死体は絶対に見つからないところに隠す。山中で野焼きなんて見つけてくださいって言ってるようなもんだもん。
うん。レナもそう思うな。警察の管轄の及ばない県外で見つかった身元の確認しにくい焼死体を高野さんということにしようとしている気がする。その山犬って人たちは、そういうのが本職なんでしょ？
なら、構図が見えてきたぞ。山犬ってのは、高野さんの部下なんだろ？山犬の隊長は、監督が黒幕なんだって主張してるんだろ？高野さんと山犬ってのは、グルだな。
富武さんのあの死に方は、監督が殺したと思わせるためなんですわね。そして、それがわかるのは東京だけ。そして、本当の黒幕の高野さんの死体も見つかり、監督は東京に2人を殺したことを疑われて、濡れ衣を着せられる。なるほど。これはなかなか凝った罠でございますわね。爪がいまいちでございますけど。
その濡れ衣ってのにも山犬って連中が関わってそうだね。
なあ、そうと分かったら監督に直接話を聞いてみないか。
Yeah, maybe we can save Coach too, because I'm like, without Coach, Sadako can't get her shots, and then Sadako is gonna, yeah, turn.
その方が早いぞ。
そうだね。監督が真実を話してくれるか、嘘をつくか。私、目を見、
ああ、レナさん、嘘に敏感ですよね。
入江は、山犬が監視していると言ってましたです。電話しても、出られないか、話せないかかもしれませんです。
なんだなんだ？聞けば聞くほど、監督は濡れ衣臭いぞ。というか、監督の身に危険が迫ってるんじゃないのか？
うん。私が山犬で監督に濡れ衣を着せようと思ったなら、余計なことを言われる前にご退場願うね。
死体に口なし、だね。どうしよう。
大石は、隣の県警の話が終わったら、すぐに戻ってくると言ってましたです。だから、時間はわかりませんが、今日必ず来てくれますのです。
As one, everyone glanced at the clock. It was already past 6:30 p.m. and starting to get dark.
なんだか腹が減ってきたと思ったら、こんな時間なんだな。
We'd usually call it here if it were a normal day, but everyone decided to stay until Oishi came back to discuss what to do.
ごめんね、リカちゃん。電話借りてもいい？お父さんに帰りが遅くなるのを電話しないと。
そうだな。俺もお袋に電話しないとな。
あ、私もばっちゃんに今夜は出前でよろしくって電話しないとな。こんな時間に抜け抜けとそんなこと電話したら、後でこってり あと警察の人たちの夕食も考えてあげないとね。本家のツケで寿司でも頼むかね。
Everyone had a sensitive reaction to the word sushi. Their stomachs were empty after all. The same should be true of those officers too, but not the mountain dogs. No food for them.
リカ、うちも出前にしますの？そんなお金の余裕はありませんでしたよ。さとこ、みんなに自慢の野菜炒めでも作ってあげたらどうですか？無理ですわよ。こんな大勢になんか作ったことありませんわ。
さとこの野菜炒めか。指さえ入ってなけりゃぜひ食ってみたいな。
レナもさとこちゃんのお料理久しぶりに食べたいかな。
At that point, the phone rang. Uh-oh.
もしもし、フルデなのです。
よかった。
Yeah, おいしい。
大石です。高野さんの殺害現場の用事を終わらせましてね。途中のガソリンスタンドから電話しています。
それで、高野の死体はどうでしたか？
Once again, this is probably bugged, so just be careful about what you say on the phone.
やりましたよ。やっぱりそうでした。現地の県警の資料がとんでもないイージーミスをしていました。連中間違いを認めやしない。ガツンと決めてやりましたよ。高野は車ごと行方不明です。富武殺しについて何か事情を知っている可能性が高いと判断し、つい先ほど高野の捜査を開始するよう指示を出したところです。ついにお社様のたたりの尻尾をつかみましたよ。ここから一気に引きず
What
り
if
出しちゃいます。
Oishi gets killed though? That would be shocking because I don't think he's ever died in any of these. Oishi sounded so motivated. And also because like he's kind of like our hope that we're leaning on, so for him to die, that would be horrible. He'd finally found the hint he so desperately wanted, especially if the mountain dogs hear this, that he believes that Takano has something to do with it, they're gonna kill him. Could he actually solve the case though?
それは土産話がとても楽しみなのです。
これからクマちゃんと一緒にそちらへお伺いしますので、詳しい話を聞かせてください。心当たりでもうさんくさい話でも何でも結構です。
はい、僕も全部話す決心がつきましたです。
おやおや、どんなお話が聞けるのでしょうかね。多分あと1時間ちょいぐらいでお伺いできると思います。
Why do I have a feeling he's gonna get killed before he shows
と
up?
ころで、受話器の向こうが賑やかですね。お友達も来ているのですか？
はい、みんな心配してうちに来てくれましたです。
そうですか。皆さんは本当に素晴らしいな。私も皆さんと一緒にいてくれた方がいいと思います。賑やかなだけで犯罪の抑止効果は大きいものです。では今から向かいます。後ほど。
今の大石さんか？
はい、今から刑事と2人で来るそうです。はあ、この部屋にこんなに大勢なんて初めてだね。何人になるんだろう。私たち6人に2人来て8人ですの？床が抜けそうで怖いですわね。9人目なのです。
羽生、聞いてた？なんだか今回は本当にすごいことになってきた。
今回はいけそうですか？
うん、いけるわ、絶対。
Whether the difference is a good thing or a bad thing is to be seen, though.
絶対という言葉は、なって当然、ならなければ失望する悲しい言葉ですよ。
羽生はこの状況になっても、やっぱり今日。
でも、死んでほしくないと思っていますのです。
あんたのスタンスは分かってるわ。傷つきたくないから信じない。マイナス思考ならマイナスで当然。もうあんたと私の考え方の違いをとやかく言わないわ。あんたは見てなさい。傍観者らしく。
Damn, that's harsh.
僕は傍観者ですから。でも、リカを応援してますですよ。
応援か。ありがとう。でも、応援していいの？応援したのに負けると、期待を裏切られない？ リカが意地悪を言いますです。
We had a rather harmonious mood going. However, a feeling of unease was beginning to settle over us. Alright. Whew. I'm interested to see what's gonna happen. Is Oishi gonna make it? Is he gonna believe her? If he does, what's gonna go on? What's happening? Alright guys, that will do it for this episode. Oh my gosh, I think this might be one of the longest episodes of Higurashi I've ever done. I feel like I was almost 3 hours or something. Like, I just couldn't stop reading. It was so interesting. So, now that Rika, her friends are all caught up on what's going on, and she's pretty suspicious of the mountain dogs in Takano, knowing that they are protecting her, and, like, how is she gonna get away from them, knowing that they're, like, watching her at all times? Like, I feel like there's only so much the police is going to be able to do, and hopefully Oishi's actually going to make it to Rika. I have a feeling maybe he might get killed before then if the mountain dogs know that Oishi knows that Takano is suspicious. Like, I don't see good things coming. Once again, this is the massacre chapter, and her friends are all complicit now. So I am not hopeful, but I want to believe maybe this will be the happy ending we've been hoping for. We'll have to wait and see. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and stay tuned for the next one. Bye, guys. Special shout out to my top tier patrons: Namara Kito, Sparky, iCognito, Simon Rax, Mad Goldsmith, Harry Gazif, and Asborn Kennedy.